What up, One Pride? This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where One Pride truly goes worldwide. My name is Antony Fitzpatrick. I'm joined this evening by Ryan McCluskey, and that can only mean one thing, something that's not happened in a little while though. Yes, we are back with the college football podcast. We've had a little bit of a hiatus over the summer while we've just recharged our batteries. The draft really does drain you when you're doing all your scouting of players and that, but I'm pleased to say that we are back, we are refreshed. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm good, yeah. Like I say, we had to take that period off. We had the draft, we have everything that was pro, and now after a crazy college off-season that has just shaken up the game as we know it, we're back ready for, we're going to be twice as good, twice as better, everything for season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, there's just really so much information that's been coming to us over the summer. We've had, all this stuff about conference realignments. We've had the NIL. We've got the commitments going on there. There's only so much we've got a whole off season here. We're still about 55 days away from the start of the college football season, so there's going to be plenty of time for us to go all over this. But yeah, it's been crazy, and we have an absolute lot to talk about, which, we're a college football podcast. That is the best thing for us to be able to do. Shout out to people who are in the chat already. Dan Pask is with us on Twitch. I have just quickly dived in there because I forgot to. He goes, "Hey Ant and Ryan, hope Hank is well. Cheers for the new season." Hey, thank you, Dan. Hank is very well. I believe he's outside enjoying the sunshine at the minute. If you don't know, we're having sort of a really big heat wave over here in the UK at the minute, and Hank's sunning himself up and enjoying himself there, isn't he, Rye?
He is, yeah. He loves it more than he should do. It gets too hot. I have to make him go inside, otherwise I'll be taking him to vets with heat stroke if I let him have his own way.
I know. That's the only trouble with the dogs. They love the outside, but they just don't know when enough is enough. Anyhow, let us crack on. I will just get through the usual housekeeping that we do for the start of the show. So as always, here at Roar of the Lions UK, we have our Discord channel. If you want in on that, just let us know. Lots of interesting conversation always going on in there. We have our main podcast, which we do on Mondays. We were on yesterday. We just did sort of an audience-driven podcast yesterday, but it was great fun. We answered a lot of questions, had a lot of laughs, had a lot of disagreements. So go and check that out if you like. Don't forget to like and sub on all our little bits going. We're a Twitch affiliate now, so there's loads of you on Twitch who are following us, and we appreciate each and every single one of you who do so, and on YouTube as well. We've hit the 450 subscriber mark now. We're going up bit by bit, so thank you to all those of you who are out there supporting us. And like I say, we've got all our Twitter, all our bits like that. We'll go through that at the end. So yeah, this is episode 1 of season 2 of this podcast, and for anybody listening who is new, we're just going to quickly reintroduce ourselves here before we go on. So I guess it was about 12 months ago now, we here at Roar Lions were doing our Detroit Lions podcast, but then we sort of got to thinking, Ryan's a big fan of college football, I was a burgeoning fan of college football, and when the season's over, if you're not really into the scene, the NFL season's over, you've got a few months to the draft, you have all these names thrown, bombarded to you from every single direction. You don't know who to listen to, who to believe, what players to look for. There's so much information there. I thought, well, why don't we do a podcast where we can do that for you? Me and Ryan watch tons of college football, so this is a case where, we can come to you every single week, let you know the latest goings on in the college football game. You as the viewers, if you have any requests of us, if there's any players you want us to take a look at that you've heard about and you're intrigued about, if there are any positional groups that you think the Detroit Lions are going to need in the next draft and you want us to have a look at some of the guys there, we'll do it for you. We had plenty of audience requests last year, and hopefully people were able to take away a lot of the information that we gave out and found it useful, and the feedback we've got suggested it was. So yeah, seems to have all gone well. The numbers have gone up every week, and again, we appreciate all of you who have joined with us. And this is our first real full season. Last year I think we started just before week 0 occurred. This year we've got a little bit of a summer break. As I say, there's still about 50 days till college starts, and that is a while away. So what we've done we're going to sort of give you a proper introduction to the college game this year. If you've not really got into it before, you want to get into it a bit more, you want to find out a bit more information, what we've done is we've created a series where we are going to go through the conferences one by one, and we're going to let you know about the teams in there, some of the team movement because of the whole conference realignments, etc. Some of the players you should look out for on these teams. Just give you a basic understanding of the league, so it's a lot easier when the season comes to sort of comprehend that. So we've spent a lot of time and effort putting this together, and hopefully you will enjoy it. Today we are going to be looking at Conference USA, which is one of the lesser known divisions of college football, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail about this one because it's sort of like the hidden knowledge of college football. There's not a lot out there about it, so we're hopefully going to break it down a bit for you, and you can enjoy what we've got to offer, and by the end hopefully you will know a little bit more about Conference USA. But before we do that, as I say, we've got a few other things on the show today, so we're just going to dive right in because we have a lot to go through. And first, we're going to talk commitments. So, obviously, this is the time of year now where colleges are really ramping up their recruitment process for the classes, or in some cases, they're already finishing off. They're getting their players for next year ready to come up to them from high school, and every now and then there are some names that appear in a class that really sort of pique the attention of people in the NFL world, and we thought we'll do a little section, some of our favourite players we've seen, some teams who are maybe making moves. We're just going to give you a little breakdown on that. So I'm going to start straight off, and Ryan, there's one name that everybody's talking about in the 2023 recruitment cycle for college football. It's a dynasty when it comes to a family name. Of course, we're talking about Archibald Charles Manning, the son of the great Manning who played quarterback in Texas in college for so many years. He is the nephew of Eli and Peyton Manning, who have both appeared in a Super Bowl, and everyone is waiting with bated breath to see what happens with the third generation of this Manning family as he comes through. And, there were a lot of things said about maybe where he could go. Would he follow Eli and Peyton to Ole Miss, where they played? Was he going to stay more deeper down in Texas, sort of where the family comes from? And, Georgia were involved, Alabama were involved, but in the end, I don't know. Maybe this is a bit surprising, but the Isidore Newman quarterback, he has chosen to commit to the Texas Longhorns in the Big 12. Well, soon not to be in the Big 12 if everything goes off here, but I don't know. This one came as a little bit of a surprise because obviously they are not very well known for developing their quarterbacks, at least not recently anyhow. They've just scalped 5-star quarterback Quinn Ewers for this season. They got him from Ohio State, so obviously they've already got a nearly highly rated prospect, nearly 1 out of 1 prospect rated there at quarterback. Archie Manning is going to go there and compete with him. I don't know, what did you make of this one?
When you were looking at the stars and the crystal balls, it seems like Ole Miss were always just hanging on by the coattails. I don't think they were ever really taken into consideration. Despite the family ties, they never had that much push. Lane Kiffin probably will have been pushing hard for him. I expect he made a real good offer for him because they've got Jackson Dart there, who's still a second-year player, but they don't really know what they've got. So Arch Manning would have been a huge draw there. And then when he looks like Georgia and Alabama, you probably looked at the conditions of where can I start the quickest. I think Bama and Georgia are looking at the 4-star Eli Holstein. There's other quarterbacks already on the roster that are destined to take over. There's places that he won't play straight away, and the battle with Quinn Ewers, who has literally, let's say, he got the NIL, left Ohio State, went to go to Texas because he was a late kid from their high school there. It's going to be really interesting to see next year. He's decided to follow the family route, stay down in Texas, but there's going to be a camp battle next year, that's for sure. It's going to be really fun to watch him go against the Ewers. If the person that loses will then transfer, put their name in the portal, that's hard to say. But Texas football is probably on the up. It's a really big commitment for them. As you mentioned, they've struggled at quarterback for the last few years. They've had the likes of Casey Thompson that left last year to go to Nebraska. They've had the likes of Hendon Hooker, guys like that in the past that have just not worked out, even though they're big star. But Arch Manning looks like he could be a potential star. And as you mentioned, they're not in the Big 12 if all goes to plan much longer. He probably took that conference realignment into consideration as well, where his future team would also be playing. So for Texas, it's massive. Like I said, they need a good long-term future quarterback. They've got Bijan Robinson, who's probably declaring for the draft this year, so they needed a big name under center, and it's a massive pickup. He's probably one of the best recruits at quarterback in their history.
Yeah, and as you sort of touched on there, it's not just him that you're recruiting, but the players that you're recruiting with him, and this sort of showed up immediately in the aftermath of him committing there. I know they landed a few prospects in the days after that. That includes the wide receiver from DeSoto, Jonte Cook II. He is a near perfect rated 5-star wide receiver. I think he's like 0.998 or something like that out of 1. They also gained another pair of 4-star wide receivers about 2 or 3 days later, and then they landed a 5-star safety in Derek Williams as well, who I know, I watched a little bit of his tape when I saw this, and like, Jesus, this guy can play. This is already paying dividends for them, isn't it, in terms of recruiting?
Yeah, big names attract big names, because if they want to look at NFL prospects, wide receivers, they probably go where the best quarterback is. So following Arch Manning just makes sense, because in the end, he could make them look good and they can make him look good. So they're already looking at the long game and the bigger picture.
Yeah, absolutely there. I mean, I know obviously it's going to be 12 months away. Quinn Ewers has his first season there, but I mean, sort of, do you see sort of a system where you can see them coexisting as one next year? Quinn Ewers been sort of the vet and Arch Manning redshirting and sort of spending a year there, or is this just going to be a full-out battle for supremacy with, you say, like the loser transferring out and going elsewhere?
Unfortunately, how college football is right now is if a QB is there or if a QB goes and he loses his starting job or he can't beat out a guy who usually puts his name in the poll, you just got to look at likes of Fields, Martell, other big names that went to a place, couldn't beat out a guy, so they decided to just jump ship and find somewhere else to try start and play football. So next year, the loser, if it were Ewers, I'd expect to see him enter his name in the portal again, and it's never good. You don't want to be changing colleges every year or two, because you only get like max 4 or 5 years of eligibility if you're lucky. It's learning a new scheme, it's moving across country, it's eligibility as well. At some point, you're going to have to ask for a waiver to be able to play. So at some point, you've just got to dig down and try win the job, or accept that you're going to be a backup and at least you might be able to at least try win something. So I expect the loser next year, if it was Quinn, we've already seen this tendency to be pretty hasty in the portal. Like I say, he's put his name in very quickly at Ohio State. To say he graduated high school early, took his exams early because he got that big NIL, and then to last not even a season and decided to want to leave Ohio State to go to Texas. He's probably worried. He probably saw this and probably thought, please don't pick Texas. Please don't come here. I don't want to have to compete with them, because we haven't even seen Arch throw a ball yet as a collegiate player, but you already know there's some serious threat there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The hype around him is real, although I don't want to see any of this. Let's have the Lions for Manning in 2027 or whatever. Good God, that is far too early. Let's wait and see what he does first. But yeah, let's say this could light a fire under Quinn Ewers' ass, and potentially that that Texas team could be very good this year if he's playing for his career. So it's going to be an interesting one to see. But yep, the new Manning is coming in 12 months. He will be in college, and no doubt the hype around him is going to be huge. Anyhow, we'll move it on because we have a lot to get through today. The other thing I wanted to touch on as we were talking about recruitments here, a team we had a lot of love for last year, they're a home state team, the Michigan State Spartans, obviously been led by Mel Tucker. They had a really great year last year, apart from when they kind of messed it up against Purdue and Ohio State. But it's fair to say Mel Tucker's turned that program around on the field. They're a hell of a lot better team than when he started there. They seem to be gaining a respect of a lot of their peers around there, and it seems that he's also turning around their fortunes, not just on the pitch, but in the recruiting classes as well, because traditionally they're a team that recruits okay, but they're like a top 40 team. maybe in the late 30s, something like that. Currently, their recruitment class for this year is, I believe, about number 20, and that is in part due to a couple of real high-profile guys they've brought in recently. I think it was last week they landed the edge by Joe Bay from Oklahoma. He's a 4-star guy. There's a lot of buzz about this kid and how good he's going to be. He is the highest rated capture for the Spartans outside of the Midwest in over 23 years. This is a significant statement commitment from them, because they were up against, I believe, Alabama and possibly Georgia. There were 3 teams, maybe Oklahoma actually, but they were up against 2 powerhouses for this guy, and they managed to grab him there in what was a real signature move for them. And then the following day, they were also able to convince 4-star guard Cole Dellinger to commit to them over the likes of LSU. I think LSU were the favourites for him at one point. So, I mean, it's just a couple of guys here, but these are 2 big commits for MSU, which shows that, it's not just what's happening on the pitch now, but the future looks really bright for them.
Yeah, just winning games in college isn't enough, because you've also got to show to be one of the best head coaches and earn that really big high-earning salary a year. You've got to be able to recruit as well. The Big Ten is really hard to recruit in. The state of Michigan produces a lot of football players, so to try keep them in state as well when you compete with the likes of the Wolverines is incredibly difficult. Michigan State has never been the best recruiter. I believe they also got a big cornerback. I think there's a 4-star corner as well, which is a good pickup. So Mel Tucker if he can win multiple years where he can get like 9, 10, 11 wins and recruit really well, the guy might very well end up with a statue in his honour, because recruiting as well as winning is the way to go down in history. And showing that like Kenneth Walker just got drafted really well, that does really well for your recruitment class as well. When they see players getting drafted, that gives them hope and says, well, if I go there too, there's hope I can get drafted as well. So this is a big year for Michigan State, because now they've got to show that they can do it again. Now let's see if they can build up on what last year and see how well these freshmen fit in as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these big, high-profile 4-star guys fit in. Can they make an instant impact?
Yeah, you're right. Because I mean, you mentioned the 4-star cornerback there, but they've recruited 8 4-star players for next season. And I saw a tweet that was put up the other day. I don't think they've had 8 4-star recruits in the last 3 classes. And they've got one in one class here. This by Joby, the edge. They got Andrew DePepe, the defensive lineman, Jordan Hall, the linebacker, Cole Dellinger, the guard, Brennan Parachek, the tight end, Kedrick Rescano, the running back, Clay Wedding, another guard there. So that's 2 4-star guards they've got in. He's 6'7", 300 pounds. He's huge. And then Chance Rucker, the cornerback you mentioned. So, I mean, yeah, Tucker's getting the job done, isn't he? I think, in a few years, if he's still there and they're still winning games and he's there, they could potentially be, one of the powerhouses in that division.
Yeah, I think the short-term goal is probably to surpass the Wolverines. Like I said, they want to be the powerhouse in the state of Michigan. They want to be that team everyone thinks of when you think of Michigan football. And me personally, I'd rather have 8 4-star recruits than 2 5-stars. I know that everyone thinks that way, but sometimes the lack of quality can be better than quantity, especially when you've got holes to fill like that. So that's a really good recruiting class, and it's probably one of the best so far in the division.
Yeah, and well, not every recruit's going to work out either, are they? There's a whole stack of 5-star, 4-star recruits who just have never amounted to anything. So, you've got more chance on landing 3 or 4 of those guys out of 8 than you have, like you say, if you get 2 of them and one of them flops, you got 4 guys instead of 1. So, yeah, rightly so. So, yeah, excellent job from Mel Tucker, and interested to see what the Spartans do this year, because they have a few issues going into the season on the pitch, but hopefully they can win enough games to keep things rolling there. Just dive off to the chat for a minute. Det Fanman is in there. Thank you for joining us as always. What would the start of the second season be without the first comment on YouTube being about General Booty? Yeah, he says, Manning, I thought this was going to be more chat about General Booty. Obviously the quarterback who is declaring for next year. I believe he's gone to Oklahoma. I think he committed back in May. But yeah, General Booty. I'm sorry, I say the name often enough, it makes me laugh. But yeah, We'll talk about General Booty a bit if he sees the field as and when he comes. But yeah, there we go. Micro Mike is in the chat. What's up? What's up to you, sir? Thank you for joining us as always, and I look forward to chatting with you on LNU later on. Gino's in as well. He says this is what you get when you pay for your players. Well, yeah. I suppose this is a whole different argument here. The recruiting classes, how much are they getting paid, all this, the NIL. It makes it very murky here at this moment in time. But, you still got to convince a player to go somewhere. My guess is that, Bama and Oklahoma are offering by Joby a decent amount of money to go there and play for them. I can't imagine that it's an insurmountable amount that Michigan State have offered for him to go there. Could be wrong, but I don't know. It's a little bit of one of those things, so we'll see. But, is there anyone else, commitment-wise, is there anything else that has stood out to you sort of over the summer, or you want to move this one on for now?
I see Oregon, they picked up their highest recruit in history, Dante Moore, the four-star quarterback. He finished high school with over a 70% completion passage. He had some big names. I'm pretty sure Michigan Wolverines were pushing pretty hard for him, but I think he decided to stay close to home. So you're looking like he could be the natural suppressor to Bo Nix, which I think is interesting. The one recruit I'm really interested to see this year is five-star quarterback Drew Aller, because Sean Clifford has struggled in Penn State. The offense has not been fantastic in recent memory. I'd like to think that someone's able to push him there, and I think he's someone that could see a bit of playing time this year. So I think that's going to be an interesting battle. I think Clifford probably comes out on top to start the year. But if things do struggle, I'd expect Drew to firmly put his name in the hat and try to get some playing time this year.
Yeah, I think that's probably low-key already one of the big possible upsets you can see when it comes to quarterbacks getting supplanted, freshmen getting in there. But yeah, I agree. I think that he's going to be in there. I mean, I've always been a bit higher on Clifford maybe than you have, but still, I concede the point that this guy is very damn good. So there's a good chance we could see him this year, especially if Clifford does get injured, because I know he's had a few injuries in the past as well. Is there anything else commitment-wise, or shall we move this on to conferences? God.
Yeah. The big people that have not yet announced their commitments. I know quarterback Eli Holstein, the four-star QB. I think Georgia and Bama want him really hard. Did well at Elite 11. I think he is. I'm not sure when it is, but it's probably a few weeks away. He's probably one of the most prevalent names still left on the market, quarterback-wise.
Yeah. I mean, there's some big ones coming up. I mean, Dylan Raiola's, I think, he's gone to Ohio State in 2024, but he's going to meet up with Arch at some point. So, yeah, there's some huge commitments out there. And, speaking of, beating, that Oregon one you just mentioned, I think they beat Michigan for him, didn't they? Michigan were gone all in on getting him, which is kind of I don't know if it's an indictment there, but again, Oregon have not done much quarterback-wise, apart from Justin Herbert, really, in recent history. So, you would maybe bet a bit more with Michigan, but I don't know. A lot of things going with these players. Again, it could be NIL money, I don't know what, but, it'd be interesting. Still a lot of time for them to decommit and go elsewhere, and we'll see what goes on with that. But we'll leave it there. Obviously, there's going to be more commitments as we go on, but there's that many that we could be chatting here till the start of the season about that. So yeah, we'll move it on to the conference realignments now. So obviously, since we were last on air, I remember we were chatting a little bit, and at the time there was some minor movements around the conferences between teams, which is not unheard of. It happens quite often. Teams come here, there, and everywhere. The independents go elsewhere. There's a little bit of a shake-up every now and then. But in the last few months, a lot has come out about teams moving, certain conferences maybe getting almost wiped out as these so-called super conferences are about to be formed, and the dominoes started to fall when UCLA and USC, all the way over there on the western coast, decided that they were going to go play in the Midwestern Big Ten, which is going to be a hell of a trip for their players, and a hell of a change in weather, scenery, just about everything. We have can you do it on a cold Tuesday night in Stoke when you're playing football? Well, the question now to USC is, can you do it on a cold Saturday day in November in Ohio? They were the first two dominoes, but there seems to be a thing now where the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the SEC at the moment are looking to absorb a lot of teams in, and we're looking at maybe the emergence of three three super conferences out of all this, with maybe a few smaller ones left below this. What we'll talk about the specific teams obviously when we do the conference previews, because again, this is something that could take forever if we try and do it in one go. But what's your sort of feeling towards this move, or possible move towards super conferences? Do you really think it's going to affect college? Is it just going to be the same, just with different matchups? What are your thoughts?
It's hard because, like I say, geographically, it doesn't make sense. Like I say, for the UCLA kit man to fill a coach full of the pads, the helmets, the sideline gear, the tables, the juice, and either drive it or ship it all the way to, I don't know, let's say Northwestern or to Indiana, and then get it all the way back again to then maybe be on the road again the next week, or do you stay over? There's going to be a lot of cost involved there and a lot of time. And you've got to think as well that a lot of the staff and a lot of like the athletic staff and the trainers, like, they could be really unhappy. Like I say, they could be saying, I'm not going to see my family. I'm not going to spend any time at home because you're moving our team all the way to a conference that's going to play like 400 miles away and in a 1,000-mile round trip, half its games. So that is going to be a real shock to the system. Like I say, when you get the likes of Penn State playing UCLA and they're both going to each other, vice versa, that is a long trip. You're passing through time zones. And the fans as well. How many UCLA fans are going to go to a game in Minnesota? How many Ohio State fans are going to travel all the way to Southern California? You might get some because that's a big game. I understand that the Trojans are a huge market. At the end of the day, this is money driven. I say the Big Ten wants USC because they're a really big name, they're a household name, and they can probably generate a lot of revenue. Recruitment-wise, this definitely changes things because players that want to stay home, that want to play for USC, might not now because they're going to be involved in a lot of travelling. They might be leaving off campus a lot of times. So it's certainly a domino effect, as you say. USC and UCLA upset the balance of the Pac-12, and now it's basically been torn apart. We've seen in last week now all the different combinations. It's getting ripped apart, and it's not the biggest conference in the world or one of the best, but it had traditions, and now all that fabric and the blueprints have just been torn apart, and there's still a lot of teams in limbo. We're still waiting on some official communication. Some teams are not happy, some teams don't want to move, but now they feel like they have to. So the next few weeks are going to be very interesting because when you talk about rights, TV contracts, to leave a conference and join another could cost you millions and millions of dollars in the short term because you've got to buy yourself out essentially. So again, it's all about checkbooks, TV rights, money, and things like that. So the fabric of college football is changing.
I mean, in the specific example of the Big Ten here, I guess you can maybe see the benefits here. I mean, Gino in the chat says Iowa travels well, but on the whole, sort of the Big Ten teams do travel well. Ohio, Michigan, like he says, Iowa, they will probably take more fans all the way to Cali than some of the Cali teams will bring with them, as a guess. So, as from their point of view, obviously, they will make more money through that. And, the Big Ten will benefit from having, more teams in there. USC, they're a decent team. UCLA, good team. It'll sort of have a bit of prestige in there, a bit more, bit more competition. I don't know, but I like you say, I'm with you. It's really confusing. I mean, especially at the minute, we're doing this whole conference preview thing this year. It's going to have to be ripped apart and put together next year. I was hoping I might be able to reuse the templates next year. That's not going to happen. So, the biggest thing is the college football playoff. Yeah. And we know why the Pac-12 is splitting up, because you can go 12-0 in the Pac-12 and you cannot even get a single vote to be in the college football playoff because it gets no respect. It's because the college football committee don't give a toss about the Pac-12 or anyone in it. There's hardly any big wins. Your schedule don't look good. But if USC go to the Big Ten, if they finish 11-1, if they beat Ohio State, if they beat Michigan, and then they beat UCLA and a few other sides, they'd be in serious contention. So to leave the Pac-12 is just trying to heighten chances of making the playoffs, because
your chances of getting a bid inside the Pac-12 are absolutely minimal. So it's a gamble worth taking for the big sides. And UCLA clearly feel like, as long as money as well, that they probably want more recognition and better bowl game. Because when bowl games are handed out as well, you probably want to be in a better conference. So from that side of things, like the logistics and the competitive side, it does make total sense. Anyone in the Pac-12 has to be trying to leave.
I mean, surely it's going to have to involve an expanded playoffs, because, I mean, who takes precedence? Say, for example, the three super conferences come along, the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC. When you've got the SEC with Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma are going over, you know, if they're all ending seasons not playing one another with really good records, you know, they're all going to be demanding entry into the playoffs, and then you've still got two other conferences to take into account. Then you've got Ohio State, you've got Michigan, you've got the Spartans, you've got USC in another, and then you've got the Big 12. I mean, it feels like the Big 12 would lose out here big time, because it's got good teams in there, but not the star pulling power, especially when it's losing the likes of Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, I don't know. I don't see how it works unless it expands. I don't know if you feel differently, but I feel like you're going to have to offer more if you're going to up the conference limits like that.
Yeah, once you're adding more people into the conferences, you make it difficult because tiebreakers will become more harder to determine because you've got more of the teams playing each other. You've got more head-to-heads, things like that, with the better sides where they could all finish on the same record. For me, I would like to see a 16 playoff. I'd like to see an eliminator between like teams 5 and 6, 3 and 4. The winners of 1 and 2 play the winners, and then the winners of those games play the championship. So an eliminator like that would probably work the best. Like the National League playoffs, don't you? You have the eliminators, and then you've got that. That would work really well in the playoffs. Give 2 more chances that maybe finish 11 and 1 and 10 and 2, and like that would work well.
And then
it can't be any more than 8. Yeah.
And then give home.
It can't be any more than 8.
Yeah.
Because if you go to more than 8 teams, you water down the quality. And I know people are saying like, "Oh, want a 12-team college football playoff be fun?" No, it would not. Because do you want teams like, no disrespect to Wisconsin and Iowa and Texas, but you don't want 9 and 10 teams clawing their way in and just dribbling through and getting slapped. That's no fun. So 6 to 8 teams, I think it's a long way off. I don't think we'll see at least the expansion till 24, 25 because the committee seem really digging their heels in. But I agree. When you bulk together these conferences, you need to expand the playoffs.
Yeah, agreed. And I do actually like the National League format there. Give the higher seeds home advantage, you know, so you've got something to play for as long as you grade it fairly and whatnot, and then work it on that basis. So that could be interesting. Dan's asked us a few questions on Twitch. I'm going to go through those now. I'm not ignoring you there, Dan. The first one he asks, he says, do you think the ACC would be a 4th big league if a 4th was to come through? Now, I was quickly thinking about this, and you know, in terms of size, I guess the AAC will be the next big one now because they've just taken half of Coosa with them next year, as well as a lot there. That's going to be a pretty big division going forward, but I don't know. Where would you see possibly the 4th, if there was a 4th, to emerge from the wreckage of what the big 3 left behind? Where would the 4th come from?
I feel like somewhere like the... I agree, the American. You've also got the Mountain West. That could take a lot of the Pac-12 sides that don't leave, or that don't go to bigger leagues, the Mountain West, because you've got, like, say, Utahs, Colorados. They could happily fit into the Mountain West. The ACC, the ACC, I don't see teams joining. I see teams leaving. Like I said, I think the ACC is also going to suffer like the Pac-12. It's going to be split up because you've got, say, Miami, you've got FSU, you've got Clemson. All right, the team's down on their luck and they're struggling, but big fan bases, absolutely. Big cities, lots of money, yes. Historic programs, uniforms, the logos that everyone knows about, of course. So they are big 3 sides that people will want. And then, unfortunately, left of the Virginias, the Virginia Techs, the Dukes, they'll be left by the wayside to find a home. So the ACC is probably going to get ripped apart and not expanded. I agree. Mountain West and sides like that will pick up Pac-12 and then you'll take other sides as well. So there could be quite a large Mountain West conference in future.
I guess you could maybe see a Coosa and a Sunbelt merger maybe as well, that sort of area of the country. I mean, they're sort of a lot of them of the similar quality. Just if you're going to make a big league, you could combine those two and make one as well. So, I guess there are a few options left, but yeah, it remains to be seen. I think a few leagues are going to vanish, which will be a shame because, like you say, there are a lot of storied rivalries in some of these divisions, and if you're going across the country, there's no rivalry to speak of there. So, you know, a lot of those will disappear by the wayside, which will be a shame. Dan also asks, he says, is it going to help the other sports at UCLA and USC? He heard the programs were broke. You know, I guess because when the football moves, when the conferences move, generally a lot of the other sporting teams. Because don't forget this, you know, NCAA is not just football. It's like 14 different sports or something like that, isn't it? So, I mean, could this be a move to sort of boost the other sports programs there? 'Cause you know, my limited knowledge of what's going on, but the Big Ten's pretty good for its basketball at the minute. Pretty competitive. I guess if USC go there, put the team in, it could benefit them as well.
It's hard to say. Like, some sports will suffer. Some sports that are struggling now, joining a harder conference could be even worse. Some sides that are too good for the conference they're in and don't get enough playoff recognition, like say basketball. If those Pac-12 sides don't have a chance of making the Final Four, joining the Big Ten certainly helps. Like I say, but then when you look on the flip side, Duke, their basketball side, Duke don't want to leave the ACC because Duke and Kentucky like that, they dominate in basketball. They don't want to join a harder division, like I say, because they have their cushy roots through the basketball finals. So I agree that when you take into account conference moving, it's not just about football, it's about everything. Like I say, you've got soccer, you've got lacrosse, you've got gymnastics, you've got athletics. Like, there's a lot of moving parts. They all generate their own money. They all hand out their own scholarships. So these conference alignments are probably the most complex things in sports, because if you get it wrong, you can literally flatten your university to the ground. If you move to the wrong conference and all your sport teams struggle, you don't recruit, you lose millions of dollars, and if you're an athletic director, you probably get sacked. So you're staking your whole reputation on these moves. That's why they need ratification and they need approval for the NCAA. They can turn around and say no.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a whole cluster going forward. There's going to need to be a lot of discussion about this. It's not just football it affects at the end of the day. It's all this. I mean, and I guess for football teams, you know, like Duke, where their football team's not very good, but their basketball team is damn good. You know, you don't want to be affecting their basketball program, you know, by moving the football team around somewhere. And, you know, a lot of colleges, football isn't the first sport. So, yeah, it's a cluster, and we're going to see this play out probably over a very long time, and we'll follow it as it goes on and see what happens. Just finishing the last question from Dan before we move on to the meat of the show. He's put this one in our language as well. Is the Pac-12 now the Danish Football League instead of Serie A?
Yeah. The quality has dropped massively. Like I say, as a Pac-12 fan myself, losing USC and UCLA, don't mind that, because we've struggled in the past as Arizona State. But who are rumoured to be joining? Like if like say the 6 teams that are interested in the Big Ten, like things just get a damn sight harder. It doesn't get any easier at all for the Pac-12. Like I say, it's basically getting disbanded. The likes of Colorado, Oregon State, Washington State, some of them don't want to leave, but also they don't really have a home anymore. They could really struggle. It will hurt them moving to a stronger conference. So the Pac-12, as we know it, could be over, but it's certainly difficult. I won't miss the 3:30 a.m. games. Like, the Pac-12 can piss off for that. If the game's on at 9 p.m. on a Sunday, I'm really happy because I'm not staying up till 3 a.m. for kick-off on a Monday. So that's one proviso. But I also don't want them getting my ass slapped by Texas or any other big side in the Big Ten. Like, say, Texas, TCU running wild. Like, that won't be fun. So, yeah, it's on its ass now, unfortunately, it's the Pac-12.
Yeah, dark days ahead for that, and maybe a few other conferences there. But as I say, as the situation develops, we will keep you updated as to what is going on. But at the minute, the Super Conference does look like it may be up on us. It just remains to be seen which ones it happens with. Dan says cheers for that. Yeah, no worries, Dan. Like I say, you can ask us any question you want. We will get that answered for you. Quick aside though, Danish football's actually not bad. I have a friend who lives in Copenhagen. I go and see her frequently, and we've been to football games there, and the atmosphere is pretty damn good, actually. The standard of football is not...
I've been to a Copenhagen game, and the atmosphere was downright scary.
Yeah, Copenhagen.
Yeah.
FC Copenhagen are a decent team, actually. That's who I've been to see as well when I've been staying in Copenhagen. So, yeah, Dan, if you ever find yourself in Denmark and football season is on, because it's different to ours, taking a game is very good. One Pride 40 is in the chat. Thank you for joining us, as always, sir. He goes, bold prediction, MSU beats U of M for a third time. Well, I mean, yeah, they are on for a potential 3-0 over them this year, but obviously we'll talk about that when our Big Ten preview comes along, but the big thing is, Kenneth Walker kind of ripped UNM on his own last year, and they've no Kenneth Walker this year, so, can they replace him? That'll be the big thing for them, but, no one thought they could do it twice last year, and they did, so, go for them. Hope they do well with that. Right, so, is there anything else you want to add about the conferences for now, or shall we sort of leave that and revisit?
All I will say is, for me personally, it's time the independent teams join a conference. That's how I feel. I know a lot of people disagree. Notre Dame hold a lot of keys right now. What they decide to do and where they decide to go is a big domino that falls. Like I said, BYU, rumoured to have joined the conference. That leaves the likes of, I always get this wrong, is it New Mexico?
Liberty,
Army. There's about 7. I think
There
Massachusetts,
BYU.
UMass as well, yeah. So that leaves like 4 or 5 independent teams that probably all now find a home, I think.
I think New Mexico, in our CUSA preview I think New Mexico have agreed to join CUSA. Liberty have agreed to join CUSA, CUSA, so they've found homes.
Yeah. So the independents are all finding homes, and that's how it should be. I know it's great to design your own schedule, because independent teams basically reach out to teams and say, do you want to play us? They like that freedom, but unfortunately now with all these conferences splitting up, they're kind of having to make up the numbers, aren't they?
I know Big Ten are really pushing for Notre Dame, aren't they? I think if that happens, then certainly...
They're a big market. They're a really big market.
The Big Ten Super Conference becomes a reality when Notre Dame go there. Notre Dame, USC added to what's already a great mix. I mean, you fear for the mid-teams in the Big Ten, like the Minnesotas and the Iowas and that. They're just going to get left behind, but... Gonna put forward a lot of great fixtures going forward there. Yes, that's true. One Pride, he says UM have lost a lot of players. Hutch, Jabo, Ross, Hill. Yeah, they have. They've lost their coordinators. Alright, we'll quickly finish this one. Of course, we've got loads of CUSA to do, but he says, should U of M be concerned with their recruiting efforts this summer? Because they have lost out on a few people. We mentioned the quarterback. There are a few others, but they have landed on a few as well. But do you think they should be concerned with what they've done overall?
Yeah. They didn't pick up many big names in the portal, despite lots of big players transferring. Like say they lost Daxton Hill. They could have done with an elite level defensive back, someone like Elias Ricks, someone like that could have filled in at that cornerback slot. That, like say, they don't have the pulling power. They never would have got them, but I'd expect them to see more big transfer players than more recruitment. So I didn't see them bringing huge stars. So. And I've always got questions about the likes of JJ McCarthy. I'm not sold on the QBs, I ever really have been. So it's going to be certainly a big year for them. They're going to have to prove a lot of people wrong because people are doubting them. I also can see an MSU 3rd win in a row.
Yeah, because they have kept a lot of their team intact. They have lost a few guys, but they seem to have recruited all right. So yeah. It's going to be an interesting division this year, for sure. So we'll move it on now. So we've had a talk about recruitment, we've had a talk about the conferences. So we're going to get into the main part of the show. Now, as I've already said, there is a lot of time left until the college season starts, but, this is our first real off-season doing this podcast. So what we are doing is we're doing a sort of a comprehensive enough review of all the leagues coming up to the season, letting you know a little bit about the teams, about the divisions themselves, some of the players to watch, the strengths and weaknesses of the sides, little bits like that. So, we're going to do that for all 11 conferences, all the teams, and hopefully when all is said and done, a little bit more about the full landscape of college football. And today we are going to be doing Conference USA. So Conference USA is one of the smaller conferences here, and there's a lot of change about to go on in there. So the plan is, now One Pride says you're not sold on McCarthy. I don't know. I'm not sold on. I don't know about the Michigan quarterback battle at the minute. It's going to be interesting. I think both of them have got a legitimate shot there. So I think you'll see them both. It might be a sort of like a Notre Dame situation this year where they maybe use them both, because they seem to like to use JJ in certain situations, so we'll see with them. But yeah, moving on, Kusa. So, as I say, I've done an exhaustive sort of list of the teams. I've put up some information about them. We're going to go through them. We're going to discuss them a little bit now. Right, so what I'm planning to do, I'm going to screen share, and hopefully all of you watching the stream will be able to see my little, my notes that I've done for this, so we can go through them, and you can go back to them at any other time if you want to take a look at them. I mean, I would try to have done something a lot more fancy and professional for this, but we do this as a part-time thing. We've put enough effort into this here. I unfortunately don't get paid to be able to do anything of top-notch caliber with this, so hopefully this is the next best thing going. So I've got another stream up here. I am going to get this up, and then we can get underway. To you guys who are watching us on Twitch, I will come out of the screen share every now and then just to see your comments in there and get to them. But if you just bear with me, if you do put something in there and I don't get back to it right away, then don't worry about it. We do appreciate you for all that. Right, where are we at now? So I want to, not you. Oh, great. Doing this in the middle of a stream. I'm going to screen share my screen, and hopefully now everybody can see this. Right. Before we start this, I'll CUSA, Ryan. This is sort of the one of the divisions that is a lot lesser known about in college football. This is where a lot of the sort of maybe the JUCO players go, the lesser star players go. This is a place where you can find talent for the NFL, but you really have to go through it with a fine tooth comb. How would you sort of describe KUSA as the conference compared to a lot of the others that we have?
I'd say, without looking at the map, it feels very spread out as well. Like I say, it's a large conference. It covers a big, massive area. It covers, say, quite a few states. There's a lot of sides that are nipping at the heels of one another. I feel like a lot of sides can beat each other on any given day, which you don't get in a lot of conferences. It's very wide open, and they say the championship game last year was extremely entertaining. I say there's a lot of different play styles. It's not one of those pass heavy leagues or run heavy leagues. You see an awful lot of stuff. It's really fun to watch. It's a very underrated conference.
Yeah, agreed. I know one of our favourite teams out of here last year was UTSA, the University of Texas San Antonio. They had a great season there. This is not showing how I want it to. Why is it not screen showing? It's just gone blue on there. Stop it. Oh, I don't know. What the hell do I do? I want to screen share. I want to use you. Share. Can I share this? Why is it not sharing? Oh god. Bear with us if you're on the pod at the moment. I'm just trying to get this going so that we can see it right. I don't know if the people on the pod can't see it right. Why can we not see your screen sharing? Damn, this stuff is so confusing. I might have to go through it. Oh god. No, I've just got a blue screen coming up on mine and no one can see anything. Why can't anyone see anything? Oh dear. Just bear with us one moment, folks. I'm just quickly going to put us on a break. We don't really usually do a break very often, but I'm just going to quickly put us on a break while I figure out what I need to do with this. I'll be back in one moment. sorry about that to all of you who are watching us there. I was going to try and be able to screen share all this stuff with you that I've got, but it does not appear to be working at this moment in time, and I don't want to try and ruin this anymore because I've tried to do this. So yeah, I'll just go through the notes and we'll discuss it, and I'll try and find a way to put the notes up there. So yeah, we're talking about the Conference USA. So the Conference USA, one of the newer divisions in college football. So this was founded in 1995. The current champions, as we mentioned last year, the University of Texas San Antonio, they won a great game against the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers in there, and we just mentioned it there, but I mean, for a division that isn't known for a lot of the great football that comes out of there, this was one of the more fun. This was one of the more fun championship games that came out, and these were two really great teams who did really well last year.
Yeah, two high-powered offenses. You have different styles. UTSA, very run-heavy with Sincere McCormick. Western Kentucky, air raid with Jarrett Stearns and Bailey Zappa. That's how those two styles. One was pass-heavy, one was running every down and try gash you, eat up clock. One was big play explosive, and both teams managed to deliver on what they wanted to do, and it turned into a very high-scoring turnover battle. So it was one of the best games of the entire championship season.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, yeah. Oh, hang on, just one sec. I'm just going to give this one more go to see if I can do this. If I can't, then it's going to be a pain, but I'll give it one go. So yeah, anyhow, we'll just explain a bit about CUSA while I'm trying to do this. So the current teams who reside in CUSA, there are 11 this season. It is going to go down to 9 next year. So you have Charlotte, we've got Florida International, Florida Atlantic, Louisiana Tech. No, it's just gone blue screen. Middle Tennessee, North Texas, Rice, the University of Alabama Birmingham, UAB, the University of Texas El Paso, UTEP, the University of Texas San Antonio, UTSA, and Western Kentucky University, WKU. There are a lot of abbreviated teams in this division. So, as we mentioned, there's been a lot of movement around the divisions recently. So, the recent departures, they've lost some teams in this off-season. So, Marshall, Old Dominion, and Southern Miss have all just moved to the Sun Belt. We're going to be doing about the Sun Belt next week, so we'll hear about those teams then. And there's a lot of future departures from this division as well. I mentioned that it's going from 11 to 9 next season. So, the future departures: Charlotte, Florida Atlantic, North Texas, Rice, UAB, and UTSA, they are all heading to the American Athletic Conference in 2023. That division is going to get a bit of a boon in membership. But they have started the recruitment process, so there are future arrivals coming in here. So I've already mentioned the Liberty Flames are arriving. Jacksonville State Gamecocks are coming as well, the New Mexico State Aggies, and you've got the Sam Houston State Bearcats. They're all arriving in 2023. Sam Houston coming up from the FCS. Now, there are a lot of departures there, Ryan, for CUSA, but in Liberty, in Sam Houston, even in Jacksonville State, who had a very high-powered and enjoyable to watch offense last season, they have replenished the ranks pretty decently given the situation that they're in.
Yeah, with no disrespect, the teams that they're losing, they're not really that bothered. Like say losing Marshall, losing Rice. No offense to Rice, but they're not a very good football side at all. So bringing in the likes of Liberty, if Hugh Freeze is there or not, but they've come off some fantastic years since joining the FBS. Sam Houston State, who've shown that in recent past they've been too good for most of the FCS. Jackson State, like say, what can you say? Deion Sanders. You've got Travis Hunter. You've got 5-star recruits. They're very bold. They're brashy. They look like they could put some surprising results there. So 3 great additions. So this is where you get quality over quantity. Losing a lot, but those 3 sides they're gaining, they're going to give some of the sides that are already in the conference a real good run for their money. Anyone that's too comfortable is probably going to get a shot. So leaving the FCS to come to the FBS, somewhere like the CUSA, seems like that natural first step of progression. So they could get some big sides joining in the future as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I do actually look forward to this. So, yeah, you'll find most of the teams, the CUSA, this is sort of more down in the south eastern corner of America. Obviously, you've got UTEP in El Paso all the way in sort of central. Then you go all the way out to Florida, where you've got Florida Atlantic, Florida International there. So we're going to go through the teams. There's 11 teams. I've just put a few facts together about some of these guys, where they play, the record from last season. We'll talk a little bit about rivalries because Ryan is our resident rivalry expert here. So I know he'll like to hear about that. And then we'll just go through the coach, the quarterback, some of the strengths and weaknesses of these teams, the schedule that they have, and then we're going to give you a player to watch, because like I say, CUSA is not as well known, and we want to put some names on the map for you to keep an eye on as this season goes, because as we've seen this year, UTSA, Western Kentucky, they've put some good talent into the NFL. So this is not a place where you can't find NFL caliber talent. So we're going to start off, this is going to go alphabetically through them all. So we start off with the Charlotte 49ers. They were established in 2013, so a relatively new team to the scene. They play in Jerry Richardson Stadium. Their 2021 record was 5-7. They were 3-5 in Conference USA, so a smidge under 500 there. Their rivalry is Appalachian State. That is sort of a contested thing with them there. Again, Charlotte, relatively new. There's been a rivalry there in some of the other sports throughout the years, but Charlotte and Appalachian State, the rivalry's there. So their coach, his name's Will Healy. He is in his 4th year there. Now, this is one of the more highly thought of coaches in CUSA. He is an up-and-comer. He had great success in the FCS with Austin Peay, their FCS team there. That led to a promotion to the FBS with him, with Charlotte. He's taken them to their first ever bowl game in Season 1. Yes, they have only been going since 2013, but you've still got to make your first one there. He's also got them their first win over a Power 5 school last season when they beat Duke. Again, maybe not the biggest Power 5 school there, but there's still a difference between these teams. So, first bowl game, first Power 5 win. He's got a 14-17 record at Charlotte, and he's got a career line with Austin Peay involved of 27-38. But this guy is a terrific recruiter. I know Austin Peay, he had a #1 ranked recruiting class for the entirety of the FCS, which, alongside the likes of North Dakota State, Sam Houston, there are some good recruiting teams. This is a coach to watch out for in this division, isn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, he's experienced. He's brought some of those recruits, like I say, that have crossed that threshold from FCS to FBS. They're a good side, like I say. They look good. They play green and gold. I think it was even the last 2 years ago, they had a pretty high-profile player drafted. I'm sure it was a defensive end that went to the Pittsburgh Steelers from Charlotte. I can't remember his name, but he was very highly thought of. I'm pretty sure he made his way to the NFL. So they have had a guy get to the major leagues in their recent years, and they've produced some good talent. They're a good side. Like I say, he's a smidge under 500 for his overall record, which isn't bad jumping up to the CUSA. There's certainly someone that you could contend coming off 5-7 last year, that they could very well be in the mix for a championship game this year. They're a very stable side, good record, recruit well. So someone that you certainly can't take lightly. And the Duke Blue Devils found that out the hard way, unfortunately.
Yeah, yes. Yep, they absolutely did. One Pride says, what conference are we talking about? This show is all about the CUSA. We're going through the teams one by one now, just giving you a little bit of information about them, just so everyone has a little bit of a clearer view of all the teams, because there are a lot of teams and there's a lot of information to take in. So hopefully this is able to shed a bit of light on some of these teams, so people know about them a bit more going forward. So yeah, Will Healy, one of the most thought of coaches in this league. It's going to be interesting to see how he does there this year. The quarterback is Chris Reynolds. He is in his 5th year there with Charlotte. He's got 7,722 passing yards, 62 touchdowns, 24 interceptions with a 62% completion rating. He's got 927 yards on the ground, 11 rushing touchdowns. Even got a receiving touchdown as well. His 4-year starter there, twice a team captain, very experienced, and with the departure of Zappi, he's one of the better quarterbacks in this league. So they've got a stable hand there leading the offense. So what are the strengths of this Charlotte 49ers team? The offense, really. It's ranked 65th in the nation last season, which, I mean, It's out of 130, so that's a middle of the road team. For a CUST team, that is very respectable, and they're returning 85% of their players on that unit, so that is a good level of continuity for them to be able to have sustained success in college. The amount of upheaval you get with players, bringing new guys in all the time, it does help to be able to bring a lot of those players back and, you know, increase the familiarity with scheme. They've got a good pair of running backs, solid tight end, wide receiver, they're alright, and they're returning 4 of 5 on their offensive line, so that's great there for them. On the flip side, the weakness, the defense. It ranked 120th out of 130 in the entire FBS. They gave up 465 yards per game on average. They allowed 55 touchdowns in just 12 games. They were 102nd in turnover margins, 84th on penalties per game. They were ranked 102nd against the rush and 118th against the pass in terms of success there. They have a new defensive coordinator who has arrived. They've got a lot of transfers come in, but that's a lot of upheaval, and it's going to take a lot of time to fix that there. I think Charlotte are an epitome of a lot of these USA teams. They usually have a good side on one side of the ball, but the other is always lacking, which kind of holds them back. But those are two vastly different sides of the ball there.
Yeah, like I said, this is a quarterback as well, 5th year, probably in his last year of eligibility. Without looking with those kind of numbers, he's probably up there for most of the records. He'll be up in the record books and all those categories. But what good's a good offense if you've got a defense that's a bit like litmus paper and something alkaline or acid? Like I say, it's just going to fall to pieces. It doesn't matter how well you do on offense. If the moment they get the ball back, they give up a score. So that is what hurts them. Like I say, 5-7 last year, so I missed out on a bowl game. 6 wins will be the total for this year. They'll want that bowl game. If it's his last year under this team, if it's his last year in college, he'll be dying to go out of a bowl game. He'll really want that 6-win total. But yeah, the defense needs to buckle up, and it's got to be stop getting passed on, stop getting run over and bulldozed, because giving up 485 yards games of an offense a game is pretty woeful. Like I say, and that is not going to get you to the championship game if you can't buckle down in the red zone and stop giving up big chunk players like that. So the offense has got a lot to make up for there, and the defense that is clearly lacking.
And the worst part is it's not even the worst defense in the conference. We will get to that later on. But you mentioned the schedule there. You said 6 wins. I did have a look around. The over-under for them is 4.5. Their schedule, they are away at Florida Atlantic. They're at home to William and Mary, FCS team. They're at home to Maryland from the Big Ten. Then they go to Georgia State and South Carolina. Then they play UTEP, the University of Alabama, Birmingham, Florida International. They're away at Rice, at home to Western Kentucky, away at Middle Tennessee, and then at home to Louisiana Tech. That's not an easy slate of out-of-conference games there. Maryland, for all their flaws they have in that team in the Big Ten, with Taulia at the helm, they have a high-powered offense, and when you're going up against the 120th ranked defense in football, they're going to put points on you. And then USC, Georgia State even are a tough team there. That's a tough conference, and can you see them winning 6 out of that?
If they're going to get 6, they have to win all the conference games. They won't be able to rely on any of those out-of-conference games. Let's say Maryland are up and down, but one of those high-powered offenses, if their defense is really giving up 485 yards of offense, Taulia Tagovailoa is looking at that game. He's circling it saying, I'm going to pass for 550, 5-6 touchdowns. He is going to go after them. So that Maryland game, without looking, could be really ugly. So they're going to have to get their work done against likes of Rice, likes of Middle Tennessee, teams like that. They're going to have to really buckle down and try and get all the conference games won next year if they want to be bowl eligible. Like I say, LA Tech, they're a good side as well. So that final game of the year could be boom or bust if they're at like 5-6.
Yeah, for me, this is a tough schedule for them, especially with that defense there, the turnover. So, yeah, I think it's going to be tough. But Will Healy, he's a really good coach. He does seem to be able to get it done. So we'll see what he's able to do there. The player to watch I've got on this Charlotte team, and this is quite an exciting guy. So it's their defensive end, Marquis Watts. He is 6'1", 235 pounds. He's in his 5th year now. He played 2 years as a linebacker. then transferred over to defensive end. He's played 2 full seasons altogether and some bit part seasons, but in those 2 full seasons he's got 123 combined tackles, a further 20 tackles for a loss, 14.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. This is a guy who has produced well in a bad defense with not a great deal of help around him, and you've also got the versatility that he's played linebacker, he's played on the inside, and he's played on the edge there as well, and the potential for him to shine this year, because they have poached out of the transfer portal the all-MAC defensive end Amir Sadiq from Central Michigan. So they now have a tandem working on the edges, which could cause quarterbacks some nightmare there. And like I say, don't sleep on any of these guys we're mentioning on these teams here because of the CUSA status. Ryan mentioned this a minute ago, but Charlotte, despite being relatively new to this league, they've already put legit defensive talent in the NFL. So Alex Highsmith, the Pittsburgh Steelers player, is on there. Larry Ogunjobi, the defensive tackle who the Bears tried to sign this summer, failed his medical. I think he's also gone to Pittsburgh. So they've got 2 guys on the Pittsburgh Steelers there, but these 2 good players in their own right. So this is a team that can produce NFL talent, and this edge, there's a lot to like about him.
Yeah, they're certainly someone that can produce those 1-2 guys that sneak into draft every year, and picking up a big transfer portal edge on a team that clearly struggles in the secondary. If you're giving up that many passing yards in the secondary, they need guys to get after quarterbacks and try and break down pockets. So their 2 edge setters are going to be crucial this year. If they both have good years and they could both rack up double-digit sacks, everyone behind them will benefit, and that defense will not finish in the lower 10% in the nation next year, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. This is a team very much in sort of transition at the minute, but potentially one that could be fun to watch. They've got a decent offense, they've got an experienced quarterback, so we'll see what happens with the Charlotte 49ers this season. So moving it on now, we're moving to the Florida International Golden Panthers, established 2002, so relatively new team themselves, but these teams from last year, right? These were one of the worst teams in football. They play at the Ricardo Silva Stadium. Their 2021 record reads 1-11, and they were 0-8 in Conference USA. Their only win was against their FCS opponent, who, it slips my mind who they were. Their rivalry, the in-state rivalry here with Florida Athletic, they call that the Schuler Bowl. That is named, I believe, after the famous coach Don Schuler, who was at Florida. No, in fact, I'm not going to say which one is that. If I get it wrong, it might upset some people. Anyhow, Florida Atlantic are on a 5-game winning streak in this one at the moment, as one side is definitely a lot more powerful than the other currently. Florida International in a bit of a slump. Their head coach, this is one who you might recognize because he's been around the Pac-12 a fair bit. The coach for Florida International, Mike McIntyre. This is his first year at Florida International. He is a well-tenured coach with a history of doing well with teams. He took over the San Jose Spartans in 2010, finished 1-12 in his first season. It was not a good team that he took over, but he left 2 years later. In his third year, he turned them into a 10-2 team. They won the Military Bowl that year against Bowling Green, so to take them from a team that won once to a winning bowl team in 2 years was really good there. They broke 36 school and conference records the season that he left, and a lot of them are still intact now. That's just how good he made his team there. He left to go to Colorado, though, in the Pac-12 South, where your own Arizona State Sun Devils reside. He spent 6 seasons there. Now, this is probably one of the weirdest outliers of anything ever, but he spent 6 seasons there. 5 of these seasons were losing seasons, which saw them finish 6th in division every single season, which is at the bottom. However, the one winning season he had in 2016, they went 10-4, they were 8-1 in the Pac-12, and he delivered Colorado its first ever Pac-12 South Championship, as well as getting the Pac-12 Coach of the Year award. He was eventually fired from there for too many bad years. He's been an assistant coach at Ole Miss and the defensive coordinator at Memphis, and this is his first year in the job at Florida International. So, Ryan, this is a guy you might know a little bit about, but he has history turning bad teams into good teams, but Florida International is this is a challenge and a half compared to anything he's had in the past.
Yeah, this will be his biggest challenge today. They cannot be going into this season with any confidence whatsoever. To go 0-8 in conference play and say go 1-11, and then you have to come in and establish what you've got of a roster. It's safe to say teams that go 0-8 and 1-11 don't recruit very well. They're not attractive to players in the transfer portal. They've done well to get a head coach like this that's willing to take on a lot and try to put his reputation on the line. It's going to be a very difficult year this year. I say the bar is so low that improvement is very easy. If he wins 3 games, that's probably a huge jump on what is expected. But he'll certainly be keeping his expectations in check this year. And I remember that 10-4. I feel like I know Steven Montez was there as the Colorado quarterback, but I remember everyone, they thought it could have been a sneaker. They'd have won the Pac-12, could have been an outlier for the playoff. They were crazy good that year.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Like 5 years in 6, he finishes bottom conference, and then this 1 year he just first ever title, 10-4. It's just like, yeah, that's absolutely crazy. But you know, if any guy's going to be able to turn this franchise around, it's him. So you know, best of luck there. Their quarterback is Gunnar Holmberg. Now he is a transfer from Duke.
I know that name.
He is a 1-year starter there. I'll pass it on to you in a tick. In 2021, you know what? In fairness, he had a 67% pass completion rating, which is pretty decent. Threw for 2,358 yards with 7 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Not so great. 6 rushing touchdowns on the ground. He spent many years at Duke. Had a long time developing there. He was injured. He was developing. He impressed in year 1 having the starting job there, but then chose to leave anyhow, which was maybe a surprising move. I've watched a little bit about him. His awareness in the pocket is really good. Actually, we've got really good athletic ability. You know, some of the running plays that he makes, his ability to extend plays is really good. And I actually quite liked what I saw of him, but there's a lot that he needs to work on. This is a really big risk for him transferring, but if he can get FIU firing, if he can get a few wins in there, this could potentially be a sneaky move for him, but it comes with a lot of risk.
Yeah, they definitely needed him more than he needed them. I know he's a long-term developmental project. Duke have had quarterbacks like Daniel Jones, Chase Bryce. He's not managed to unseat them, but he's always been that guy holding the clipboard, calling in the plays. And last year, yeah, Duke weren't very good. It wasn't always him because the defense pretty dreadful. The touchdown to interception ratio almost equal, I'd say, because they didn't get in the red zone all that often. So it was a struggle for him. Good in the red zone himself, let's say 6 rushing touchdowns. He could bring a spark to an offense that, by God, needs it. I say he's putting his reputation on the line. He's willing to take a flyer on a team that is really struggling and needs someone to come in right now. He's a safe pair of hands, that's what I'd say. And I'd say they're very lucky to have him. Like I say, he probably didn't look them as an attractive time in the portal. He may have had limited options, but to choose them, hopefully it's a match made in heaven. It could be a workout real well for them.
Yeah, I hope he does well. He's someone who strikes me as being a great guy, and you know I did like what I saw on tape, so hopefully he's all right there. So the strengths and weaknesses of this team. So for the strengths, I've written the uniforms. The uniforms are pretty good for Florida International. I know you're our resident uniform expert there, but I mean I think it's the white with the gold trim on it. They're pretty good uniforms, aren't they, at Florida International?
They look good, yeah, and their badge, the Panther, that looks really good as well. They're a good look inside. They're in a good place in the country, so there's a lot of potential. Like I say, if someone can come in, if they can have one good recruiting class and get off the basement in this conference, like it could really change their fortunes for years to come. So they're no scrub. They're just down on really hard times, which a lot of teams in these conferences go through. That we'll speak about later.
Yeah, agreed. Chrome's in the chat. Howdy to you as well, sir. Thank you for joining us. We're chatting currently about the CUSA, so yeah, get involved. So yeah, in all seriousness, I have put the strength in this team could be McIntyre, because as I say, he has been to bad teams in the past, and he's turned them round, and he's been able to do a pretty good job whilst climbing the ladder for himself. So you know, if there's one strength they've got this year, it's the coaching. You should at least see a more disciplined team that is gonna at least compete a little more. But the weaknesses, just about everything. So you're starting right at the top here, the athletic directors. The last coach left because he accused the ADs of not caring about the football program. They didn't give him the resources to re-sign staff or go after transfers. If that is true and there is a big problem there with them not caring about the football program, then this may be a job even beyond McIntyre himself, because if you can't get the money, if you can't get the interest in the program, then you're going to be in trouble. The defense, it's even worse than what Charlotte's was. Finished 128th out of 130 FBS teams last season. They gave up 5,900 yards in just 12 games at an average of 490 yards per game, and they conceded 62 touchdowns, which is an average of 5 a game. So, I mean, that's 35 points then and there, just on touchdowns alone. On average, they gave up 39.7 points per game. So, if you're thinking on average you've got to score 40 points to win a game, then yeah, your offense needs to be crazy good to be able to do there. The offense didn't anywhere near compensate. They finished 93rd nationally with only 4,500 offensive yards and 31 touchdowns, pretty much half of what they were conceding. A fifth of that production was running back Devontae Price, the guy who I really pushed for the Lions to get in the draft. He has now gone. Their starting quarterback from last year is gone. Their best wide receiver has gone in the transfer portal. They lost 3 starting offensive linemen in the portal as well. These are really starting from rock bottom, and it's sad because as of close of 2019, they had 3 consecutive appearances in bowls. But I mean, that's just appalling. Those stats there. When your defense is giving up 40 points a game, there's very little hope for you, is there?
Yeah, there's teams in the SEC. If you're starting on a handicap of like minus 39.5, you're going to lose a lot of your games. It's very hard to turn around. They're a team, like I say, if it's true about the athletic director, the team is basically doomed, because there's a team we're going to talk about later that didn't have a football team for a few years. They just got rid of it, and it's brought back now. That's because obviously it wasn't deemed valuable enough. But if it's interesting to see how the other sports are, if FIU is struggling in other sports, if others are excelling, and if money is being pointed in other areas. But I agree. I know FSU, I know Ash, we talked about in the chat, I remember their star wide receiver entered the portal. He could have been sneaky good. ASU looked at him, so that was one of the biggest losses as well there. So this team is devoid of talent. They're basically at rock bottom, so there's kind of nowhere, they can't go much lower. Everything here is up. If they can get any Pac-12 players to come to Coach McIntyre into the future, like if they can show signs of hope, that'd be really good. But yeah, expectations set very low this year. But yeah, it's going to certainly be a struggle, unfortunately.
It is, but I suppose one of the few little things they do have in their favour is their schedule. So the schedule, they start at home to Bryant, FCS side, then they're at Texas State and Western Kentucky and New Mexico State. That's 3 road trips in a row. They're at home to UConn and UTSA. They go away to Charlotte, then they're at home to Louisiana Tech, away at North Texas, at home to Florida Atlantic in the rivalry game, then they finish away at UTEP and at home to Middle Tennessee. But I mean, you've got Bryant, you've got New Mexico State, who are rubbish, you've got UConn, who are one of the worst teams in football. There is an opportunity for them to win a couple of games there and, you know, have hope for the future.
Yeah, if you're the brand new head coach, you'd actually look at that schedule and you'd be very thankful. The scheduling gods have kind of looked down on them and given them a little bit, like say UConn. Well, there's not a lot to say about them after last year. That they were bad, like say the New Mexico, the Aggies, teams like that. Bryant, if you can open up the season and if they could put a bit of pummeling on Bryant, that will do worlds for their confidence. That first game probably makes or breaks their year. If they're upset, they could very go winless. If they win it and get confidence, you could see 2 or 3 wins there, which would probably be a good record for his first year. So that first game will be very telling, one to keep an eye on.
But I mean, you know, Bryant aren't the worst FCS team, are they? If they
No.
don't turn up, Bryant will beat them. It's that is not a given at all. So yeah, we've gone through that. So the player to watch now. This is where they do have a little bit of hope here, because one guy really did stand up from last year, and this is the guy whose tape I've watched out of all the guys I've highlighted today, whom I actually really love the most. This is their wide receiver, Tyrese Chambers. Now, for all their deficiencies, they really landed on a gem with him last year. This was his first season in college. Don't forget, he racked up 1,074 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. That is 25% and 33% of all their offense last year, respectively, from a freshman. He did it on just 45 receptions. It was an average of 25 yards per catch. That's number 2 in the nation. So, deep threat, just a little bit. He broke numerous school records held by the likes of T.Y. Hilton and Jonnu Smith. The guy himself, he's 6'1", he's 185 pounds. He will hit you hard downfield once he gets on top of the defense. You're not catching him. There's so many examples on tape of when he gets behind the defense, they may as well just give up. You are not going to find him. He's physical, great in contested catch situations. So many times he comes into contact, he just carries on going. Bringing him down, even, for 181 pounds, not the biggest guy in the world, but it takes a lot to get him down there. So you've got that. And then the offense, the running back room is in real bad shape. They've got no running backs whatsoever this year, so expect them to go pass happy, which means this guy Chambers is going to have a lot of potential targets on his back. And as we said they're playing Bryant, they're playing UConn, who are perennial whipping boys, they're playing New Mexico. This is an opportunity for this guy to get some real serious production this year, and 2 years of good production there is going to do his stock no end of good. I really like this guy.
I can't believe he took his name out of the portal. I am pretty sure he had offers from Florida State. Arizona State was sniffing. There were Pac-12 and ACC sides that were interested in Tyrese Chambers. He entered his name into the portal very early. I remember talking about in Discord, and I was like, someone watched this kid. So that shows a lot of loyalty to stay to a side that you're the go-to man. It's lacking in lots of areas, lack of depth. So he must really respect the head coach that's come in. The fact that they've poached a good ACC backup quarterback that could probably do pretty well here. He's probably thinking that he stands out really well there on tape. 12 years time fast forwarding, he might be like, nah, sack this off, I'm jumping this sinking ship. But for right now, where he is literally going to be their offense. So he could have a stellar year. Like I say, if he used to have 1,072 yards and they only win one game, imagine how well he must look if they win 4 games or 3 games. Imagine how well he must be doing. So he is a big chunk of that production.
Yep, and he's got the teams he can do it against this year. So yeah, Tyrese Chambers, big name for you to keep an eye out for. So that's Florida International. We'll move on to their in-state rivals now. Florida Athletic, who the Owls, they were established in 2001. They are in a bit better of a situation in life at the minute. They play at the FAU Stadium. Their 2021 season reads 5-7. They finished 3-5 in the CUSA. So again, just a smidge under .500 there. The rivalry, as you know, Florida International, the Schuler Bowl. The coach, now I've been saving this one for a rainy day. Ash is going to listen to this at some point. I don't think he's on at the minute. I think it's Dan and just another one in Twitch currently. But, I like making my Florida State jokes. It's usually about Jordan Travis. But this time I have a little story about them which is quite funny. So their coach, and you might know him as well, he was very briefly in the Pac-12, Willie Taggart. So this is a well-travelled head coach who had a long sort of incline up the coaching ladder and was doing really well, and then he hit a wall and it all went wrong, and he's looking to rebuild it again. So as I say, he's very well travelled. Started at Western Kentucky in 2010. He started off by snapping a 26-game losing streak they were on, led them to 2 winning seasons in years 2 and 3, also led them to a bowl game, completely moved on, completely transformed how they were doing, to be honest. He left them a very good side, got a promotion to South Florida in 4 years. He took them from a 2-10 team in his first season. By year 4, they were a 10-2 team, the first double-digit win season in school history, first time they've ever managed it. Went up even further. Then he went to the Pac-12 with Oregon for just a single season, but he only managed a 7-5 year, which for them was pretty bad because they had some bad conference defeats that year, but still a winning season. And in light of what happened there, Florida State came calling for him with a very big contract, which he accepted. And then things started to go really wrong. The first year with the Seminoles, he finished 5-7, which was their first losing season since 1976, and the first time they didn't play in a bowl game since 1981. He survived year one, but unfortunately in 2019 he started 4-5. They fired him. Now, between buying out his contract from Oregon and paying him off from when they fired him, Florida State lost $22 million on him. $22 million. He's now in year 3 with Florida Atlantic. He is looking to rebuild his career here. His current record is 10-11. He's 7-7 in conference, so pretty much close on 400. His overall career is 66-73. I mentioned at the top there, Ryan, started really well. A couple of really good jobs. Got to the big time. Didn't quite manage it, and now he's having to resurrect his career at Florida Atlantic, but very experienced, knows how to turn a team round. Could be the perfect, Florida Atlantic and him maybe heading towards something a lot better.
Yeah, like you say, he's almost 500 for his career. He's had ups, he's had downs, he's been up there, he's been down. Like, he's someone that has seen the good, he's seen the bad, he's worked with a lot of good players. He's worked with some players that aren't up there. Like I say, his time in Florida State, it didn't go well. Like I say, the losing season for the first time, 30 years, 40 years, was pretty bad. The players he had to work with at the time weren't great. I'm trying to think, probably knew the quarterbacks were. It could have been Francois, guys like that. Probably not some of the most notable names in FSU history. But yeah, he stayed in state and he's now looking to try and resurrect his career with the Owls. And he's probably got a good chance of it. Like I say, it's very respectable last year, 5-7. It's a league where a lot of teams win 5 to 7 games. It's really a slog down here. So having an experienced head veteran coach like that can almost buy you a 2 or 3 wins a year.
Yeah, no, agreed. He seems to be doing better. I think last season 5-7 was the best season they'd had. So slowly the record has been getting better year by year, and I know they are expected to try and push on and do a little bit more this year, and that's going to be on the back of the quarterback they've got there. So their quarterback is N'Kosi Perry. He is a 4-star transfer from Miami. He's heading into his second season with FAU, his 5th in college football. He went for 2,771 yards last year, 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, had 4 rushing touchdowns as well there. He is one of the... He's slightly more thought of than a lot of the other guys in this division, but, he's a decent quarterback, N'Kosi Perry is, and, a guy who they can get to bowl eligibility with.
Yeah, I remember when Hurricanes fans thought he was the next best thing since sliced bread. Proper dual threat quarterback. It didn't pan out in his time because, if I remember rightly, he did suffer injuries as long as an inconsistent player. So he's got a lot in common with Taggart. He's someone that's also trying to just resurrect his career. Like I say, he's missed time through injuries. He's now probably in that final year of eligibility. And he's probably also like Charlotte. He probably wants to deliver a bowl game and have one last hurrah. So you'd like to think this could be the year where everything clicks together for them, because he can do it. He can do it at that Conference USA level. He's got the talent to probably be one of the best quarterbacks in the conference.
Yeah, agreed. I think this is a good chance to share. And so the strengths and weaknesses of this team, the strengths, I've actually put it is the coaching probably there. Taggart is a head coach with a history of turning programs around. The first 2 years, he has basically a .500 record there. That's a good foundation for them to build on. He has 2 new coordinators with him there, but these are guys who have vast wealth of experience. The offensive coordinator is Brent Dearman. He has a history of actually developing quarterbacks and offenses. He's been at Kansas, Middle Tennessee, Arkansas State, and he's had relatively good success at all 3 of them. And, the FAU offense needs it. It started well last year, but ended up really bad. It just completely tailed off. They're returning 4 of 5 on the O-line. They've got a second-year quarterback in there who knows the system. They've added depth to the running back and wide receiver room, so Dearman has a lot to work with there. But what they are known for is their run defense. So FAU's run defense ranked top 40 in the country last year. Basically kept them in a lot of games, allowed them to win a few more than they should have done. And they've got a new defensive coordinator. He's Todd Orlando, vastly experienced. He's been with Texas, USC, some big programs. Again, had some success with them. Hopefully, he's going to be able to bring that defense in line with the offense. Hopefully, he's going to be able to make it better, and the offense is going to be able to improve as well. There, the weaknesses. The offense is the weakness at the moment. They don't put up enough points. They need to give the defense a chance because, as I say, that kept them in a lot of games last year. The tools are there, but the coaching needs to be able to, work on all that talent. Penalties and turnovers are big issues for them. They were 93rd in penalties per game, 63rd in turnover margins, so they weren't keeping the ball very well. They were getting penalised a lot of the time. That hurts you a lot in college because, penalties can just kill your game. A lot more stricter there when it comes to penalties, so you've got to improve both these facets to be able to win there as well. But I think overall I'd take the coaching staff, and they've got the players, they just need to get it put together. But like I say, it's a good situation for them to be in, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Like, so there's things I'd say there's a lot there to work with. If you've got a good run defense and force teams to pass the ball, naturally turnovers will start to happen. Like I say, if you've got guys that have come in that have worked with good QBs, like I know Lane Hatcher was a top QB at Arkansas State, that'll do really well for Nkosi Perry. Like I say, bringing in fresh ideas. If he could have a really good big last year, these could be one of the teams to watch in the conference. 5-7 could very quickly become 7-5. So they look like they're built this year to hopefully have a bit of a bounce back.
Yeah, and the start of the season is going to be crucial for them here. Their schedule, they start with a lot of out-of-conference games, so they are at home to Charlotte, then they travel to Ohio. That's just Ohio, not Ohio State. They're at home to southeastern Louisiana. Then they've got UCF at home. They travel away to Purdue, away to North Texas. Then they have their bye. They're at home to Rice, away to UTEP, at home to Alabama, Birmingham. Then they're away at Florida International, away at Middle Tennessee, at home to Western Kentucky. Those first 6 games, UCF, Purdue, Charlotte, that's going to tell us a lot about their season and just how far they can go.
Yeah, that's probably that. They've got way harder out-conference games than the sides we've already spoken about, probably some of the others. I can't imagine many other playing likes of UCF and Purdue. That you can chalk that up as probably 2 instant L's, unfortunately. Like I say, we're going to learn a lot about them in those losses. If they come out of those first 6 games, like 3-3, they'll probably be pretty happy. Like I say, if anything worse than that, like putting pressure on those final games will be really difficult. That is a tough schedule.
Yeah, agreed. So potentially tough one, but if they're able to get a couple of surprises, then again, that shows that they're heading in the right direction, back to the constant bowl eligibility they had in recent years. To finish it off, the player to watch here, everybody knows I love a good nose tackle. I talk about Aleem McNeil all the time. Well, these guys have a very good nose tackle. His name is Evan Anderson, and like I say, at the heart of many a great run defense lies an even greater nose tackle to lead said line. Had a very productive 2021, played every single game, racked up 40 tackles, a further 8 tackles for loss, a sack, 11 quarterback pressures. Nose tackle is not known for its production on the field, so for nose tackle, that's pretty good. And also the run defense, well, he did really well there. So he finished the season with an 80.3 defensive grade, and his run defense grade was even higher. It was 84.5, which is basically all conference rating according to PFF. He's 6'3", 356 pounds. This big guy. He is a dominating nose who takes on double teams, deals with trench warfare like he's eating breakfast. He just doesn't really care about it. And the great thing is, against teams like UCF and Purdue, especially Purdue with Aiden O'Connell and this high-powered offense, he's going to have a chance to make some noise this year. But that's good, for again an all-right team in CUSA. Not the best in the world. That's good production for a nose tackle.
It is, yeah, because a lot of nose tackles just swallow up guys. They're just at lower levels of nose tackles. So sometimes they're just big fat guys. They're not usually that athletic. They're not making tackles. They're not getting QB hits. So for his weight, he must be pretty athletic. So he is going to be one that's leading from the front in that defense. And everyone else kind of needs to follow his example if they're going to have success.
Yep, agreed. So Evan Anderson, the nose tackle, the guy to watch out for on Florida Atlantic this season. Moving on to the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. They've been around since 1901. This is a very storied and old college. There are a lot of these in CUSA. They play at the Joe Aylett Stadium. Their 2021 record, not great. They finished 3-9. They were 2-6 in Conference USA. Their rivalries, they have the in-state rivalry with the Raging Cajuns, Louisiana. That's been dormant since 2015, but it is returning in 2026 because of all this conference realignment stuff. The big one they have at the minute is with Southern Miss. It's called the Rivalry in Dixie. Southern Miss lead that series 36-17. I believe it's called the Rivalry in Dixie because that sort of area of the country is referred to as Dixieland. I could be wrong. But yeah, Southern Miss and Louisiana, the rivals there. So their coach, Sonny Cumby, he is a first-year head coach. He's built up a resume as a coordinator. He's been at Texas Tech and TCU. He's been a wide receivers coach, outside receivers coach, co-offensive coordinator, and full offensive coordinator. He's been a quarterbacks coach as well. Finished off last season as interim head coach at Texas Tech. Actually got them to the bowl game, got them to a bowl win. They absolutely smacked Mississippi State, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember rightly, in our bowl game predictions, we both got that wrong. So we thought Mississippi State were going to win that. The record is 2-3. His bowl record is 1-0. So his bowl record is nearly as good as his in-season record. That's how little he's coached. He is known for creating high-octane offenses, and he's going to look to implement next one to get the Bulldogs off the bottom of the conference because they're near the bottom. But you know, this is a guy who's earned his way up from being a coordinator for many a year, and if anything, it's going to be really interesting to see what he does now that he's got his hands fully on the controls of a team.
Yeah, he's clearly an offensive-minded coach. He is going to want to probably have his say on how the offense is run, how the QB plays, what their style of offense is. He sounds like a really good hire. Like I say, he has got someone that's vast experience. So I think this is going to be a really good move for them because they need a spark, they need some juice, they need some new ideas on offense. They need someone to come in and just shake things up a bit. And he's going to be, wherever he went, he is going to be someone that's going to come in implementing some good ideas. So I think it should hopefully be a good hire for them. It may take time, but eventually he may be able to mould this offense into something that can hold its own in this conference.
Yeah, agreed, but he's got a lot of work to do. The quarterback, first one in the conference we got to, this is a to be decided. They don't have a starting quarterback yet. It is an open position as of now, so they have two transfer quarterbacks, former TCU quarterback Matthew Downing, former Texas Tech quarterback Parker McNeil. He worked with Cumby at Texas Tech, so he knows the system. Might get the starting job off him. We've also got two freshman QBs as well. Redshirt freshman Andrew Brister, true freshman Landry Liddy from Calvary Baptist. Cumby is said to be incredibly high on him, but again, he's a freshman, so only so much you can do there. But feels like McNeil might. Have you actually heard of any of these guys? Is there anything you know about them there, or should we just leave this one? It is a big competition for that spot at the minute.
I know Downing because he was Max Johnson's. He was the TCU backup quarterback to their running quarterback Max, and he's not bad. He did come in when Max got hurt a few times. I'm pretty sure he's a decent rushing quarterback. He's pretty good dual threat. But like I say, if he's got a QB he knows from the system, I know that the Texas Tech quarterback would have backed up Henry Colombo. So he's probably got a good connection with him being the former offensive assistant and coordinator. You'd probably say before they've thrown a ball, he might have his nose just in front in the race. But two experienced quarterbacks there. Two teams he knows very well, TCU and Texas Tech. They were big rivals as well, so he's probably had a good look at both of them. It's not a bad position to be in if they're both fighting to be a fast quarterback.
Yeah, again, one of those we're going to have to see who wins out there, but interesting to see what happens. So the strengths and weaknesses of this team. The strength lies in their offensive line. Now, they only have 50% returning production this season on the offense, but thankfully for them, the entire offensive line remains intact. Now, while the rushing success was 115th out of 130 last season, which will make you think they're not very good, a lot of that was on bad running back play. They didn't do very well at running back at all last year, and I think that accounted a lot in that failure. On the flip side, they had the 36th best passing success in the entire FBS. Now, it's not the 36th best, passing attack, but when they passed the ball, the success they had passing the ball, they were the 36th best team in the entire FBS. That is really good. That shows the pass protection is there. They give the quarterback time to throw. The quarterback did a good job there. So whichever quarterback's ultimately going to win this starting job, they're walking into a good situation. They just need to sort out the running back room there. In the transfer portal, they snagged Devonta Lee. He is a wide receiver from LSU who they're going to pair up with Smoke Harris, who is their incumbent wide receiver who had a really good season last year. So got a couple of good receivers in there. You've got the potential to fire this offense up early. But the weaknesses, there are a lot of them. The running game is dead in the water. They need to find a running back who's going to be able to try and balance that offense out, because you can't just throw the ball all the time. A couple of teams can, but it's very rare that happens. And, like a lot of the other CUSA teams, they are down the list in turnover margin. They're 72nd, so they don't keep hold of the ball very well. Penalties per game, they're 93rd. So again, a lot of penalties, a lot of lost yardage, a lot of lost situations, which, are on them. They're beating themselves. But the defense is the big problem. They have lost 8 starters this off-season. And, it wasn't a great defense last year, but experience counts for a lot in college football, and when you're losing 8 guys who are starters, that produces a lot of problems. They've got a new defensive coordinator in. His name's Scott Power. Comes from Stephen F. Austin in the WAC in the FCS, so that's the Western Athletic Conference in the FCS. Sorry to throw all these abbreviations out there, but he did well. He turned them into the best defense in the division in nearly every category. This Stephen F. Austin defense had 108 tackles for loss and 48.5 sacks last season. So even at any level, that's a hell of a lot of production. He is very aggressive when it comes to his defense. So this team might be bad, but you're going to see an aggressive offense that's probably throwing the ball a lot, and an aggressive defense that is trying to kill running backs and quarterbacks a lot. They may concede a lot of points, but again, this is a situation where there's a lot not to like, but the foundations are potentially there, and that DC hire is actually a really good hire for them.
Yeah. The first year, it's hard to see big improvement. The second year, let's say, if they're able to replace a lot of the defensive players, get some recruits in with these big-name coaches, if one of them can get former Big Ten players to come down, but some of those Texas kids, and the other one can get those big FCS names to step up, they might replenish that defense in year 2. This year, they might pass for a lot of yards. They might score a lot of passing plays. They might give up a lot of defensive players. They could be in a lot of high-scoring games, because it doesn't sound like they're going to be able to keep it out, but they're efficient moving the ball. Any QB that's coming in wants to know that his offensive line is able to create a pocket and time for him and have at least 1-2 good receivers. So it's not the worst position to be in a quarterback, but with no complementary run game, that really does stun any offense. And without a run game, it's very hard to see out games because you can't always control the clock. So they're going to be in some lopsided scores this year, whether they win or lose, I think.
No, I'm inclined to agree with you. I'll quickly go through the schedule. Get this first 4 games. So they're playing Stephen F. Austin. I assume that's in the agreement from the new coordinator. They've got to play them. So they've got 3 road games in their first 4 games. Missouri, Clemson, and South Alabama.
Ooh.
3 road games, 2 of them against SEC opposition. Then they're playing UTEP at home, away at North Texas, at home to Rice, away at Florida International, at home to Middle Tennessee. Then they're away at UTSA and Charlotte, and then they finish against UAB, who are pretty damn good. That's a rotten first 4 games for them, Stephen F. Austin aside.
Yeah, they're already... You can basically put them at an 0-3 handicap already. And then Stephen F. Austin, you don't know what to expect. So they could almost start the year 0-4, which is not good for a team that is in flux like this with all new coordinators and a brand new quarterback. So it's going to be that is a baptism of fire, and that is probably not what you wanted.
No, well, if Stephen F. Austin are packing a defense which has 110 tackles for loss and 50 sacks last season, that's going to be a handful, even for a CUSA team. So even then, that's not a given. So yeah, the schedule has not been kind to them. Finishing off them, the player to watch. I have actually mentioned this guy already, so if you're a long-term listener of the college podcast, you will know this guy. I love safety crushers. I have one every year, and he's at Louisiana Tech. His name is B.J. Williamson. We mentioned him in the safety upload when we did the last show. Very productive in the Tech secondary. Over the last 2 seasons, he's racked up over 100 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 6 interceptions, 5 pass breakups, 3 forced fumbles. The instinct on this guy is incredible. It really shines on the field. He seems to know where the ball is. The tackling ability when I'm one-on-one is great. You know, a lot of safeties, you know, some of them have the instinct skills, but they can't tackle for love nor money. This guy can. There's so many one-on-one situations where he wraps up properly, the technique's good. I love to see him when he plays there, and, you know, he's going to have a platform to shine this year. You've got several SEC matchups on the road. The schedule is really tough. There are a lot of teams who are going to be throwing on this defense this year, and potentially a lot of potential interceptions, pass breakups for him to hoover up here. And Louisiana Tech, again, another team who can put talent in the NFL. So Xavier Woods, the Cowboys safety, comes from Louisiana Tech. L'Jarius Sneed, the corner from Kansas City, he comes from Louisiana Tech. This is a team who can make good secondary players, and this is going to be as good a season as any for him to break out.
Yeah, especially for an incoming defensive coordinator to have a leader or a general on that back end. That probably gives you a little bit more faith and a little bit more confidence in a defense, knowing that you've got someone that is a trusted veteran like that. He is going to put a lot of pressure on him, and he's going to have very high expectations of him, and he's going to deliver. He's going to be wanting to come in to impress a new defensive coordinator and improve future draft stock as well.
Yep. Certainly a season for him to be able to shine. Right, moving on. We're swiftly making our way through. So next we've got the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders. They're established in 1911. Again, anyone who listens to the pod knows one of my favourite players in the entire world, Reed Blankenship, the safety, came from this team last season. They play in Johnny Floyd Stadium. Their 2021 record, it was okay. 7-6. They were 4-4 in Conference USA. Why have I not put that? Oh, right, yeah. The rivalries. So, this is the first one where we get to some real interesting rivalries here, Ryan. I know you look a lot at rivalries, but these are some of the big ones. So, there's 2 here. There's the rivalry that they have with Western Kentucky. It is known as the 100 Miles of Hate, as 100 miles separate the 2 universities. Western Kentucky have won 6 of the last 7 in this series, which started in 1914. But it's actually perfectly tied. The record is 35, 35, and 1. So after 107 years, nothing can break them up in this rivalry here. And then they have the battle for the Palladium. Now, Ash said on our main podcast yesterday about when we were talking briefly about UCLA and USC moving, that the Trojans and the Spartans were going to meet in a Greek mythology battle. There already is one. So, as I say, the rivalry between Middle Tennessee and the Troy Trojans is known as the Battle for the Palladium. So, this has its roots ingrained, as I say, in Greek mythology. History holds the Palladium. It's a wooden statue that fell from the heavens. It was kept at the Temple of Athena in the city of Troy. Now, according to the legend, as long as the Palladium was reserved within the city walls, Troy would be safe and could not be taken. However, then the War of Troy broke out. Odysseus, who was known as the Raider of Cities, Blue Raiders, Raider, he stole the Palladium during the Trojan War, and soon enough, the city fell very soon after. So in the spirit of this Blue Raiders and Trojans linked to Greek mythology, they compete, as I say, in this battle for the Palladium whenever they meet in football. So the legend dictates the winner of the Palladium gains an unknown and unexplainable advantage over the other, making it more difficult to regain control during future contests. So if you win this trophy, then you gain an unexplained advantage over your opponent. The history between the 2 schools dates back to 1936. The Blue Raiders have a 13-9 advantage in the series. In 2003, they actually created a trophy for this to escalate the rivalry. It's the Palladium. It's a replica of this wooden statue of Athena that was meant to have existed. It's 3 feet tall. It's made of basswood, and it's got gold leaf applied to Athena's helmet, shield, and the tip of the spear. I did have a picture of it up so I could show you all, but just go and find it. The Battle of the Palladium Trophy. It is actually quite a spectacular thing, but I mean, two rivalries built on a lot of history there.
Yeah, you don't often have such a big lore or a backstory behind a rivalry. It's just, they're a bit close together, or they don't like each other, but it's nice to see someone actually take it properly serious. So that is certainly one to watch for the ages. And going off that then, it seems like the Blue Raiders hold all this mystical power with that 13-9 record.
Apparently so, yeah. It's just mythology, it's happened, but you know, psychology's a weird thing, and maybe it does, maybe it don't, I don't know. But anyhow, so yeah, moving on, their coach, so this is one of the longest tenured guys in the FBS, so this is Rick Stockstill. He's in his 16th season. He has been at MTSU as long, you know, he's been there that long that when he first started there, The Longest Yard had just been released, the film with Adam Sandler, the remake of it. That's how long he's been there. He's the 4th longest tenured coach in the FBS. I think he's joint with the Northwestern coach. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but they've both done 16 years. He was a former Florida State quarterback. His record is 101-98. He's 3-6 in bowl games. He actually got a win last year in the Bahamas Bowl against Toledo. He's won a Sun Belt Championship in 2006 and a CUSA East title in 2018, obviously because they moved conferences. Between 2006 and 2018, his team only finished lower than 3rd in the conference twice, so he's been pretty spectacularly average over the years. But the last 3 years, the record's declined. They have not finished higher than 4th in the conference, and like I said, he has a steady 500 record at the team, but the stats are a lot less kind when it comes to playing teams who finish records. So against teams with winning records, or who finish the season with a winning record, he's 18-60, and against out of conference teams who finish with a winning record, he's 4-28. I've put here, he's the guy who can get you to an adequate level but can't take you any further. The .500 record there sounds good, but Christ, that is a really bad record against teams who win.
Yeah, sounds a bit like the Lions. No, it does say a lot about sides. Let's say that teams that finish with strong records, you don't do well against. The numbers there are very lopsided. People will just look at that as he's got a 16-year tenure, but he just beats on minnows. He just picks on smaller sides, teams that he knows he can beat. But when anyone's a little bit too tough for them, they just roll over, have their belly tickled, and they're happy to just participate. So if they're always going to play like that, or if that's always going to be their mentality, then they're always going to struggle against the bigger sides, and they're always going to come up with that bigger loss to win ratio. So it's hard to break that stigma, especially when you've been going that long as well. So it's hard to see that changing anytime soon, because it's usually a mental thing, trying to beat sides with winning records or bigger sides like that. It's never easy.
It just smacks of stagnation as well, doesn't it? That long, and then no real, 2 titles, but 16 years. It's a long time to go between. Mark Stroder's in the chat. He says Super Bowl or bust. Well, yeah, maybe he should go all in for it and try and do better. But sometimes better the devil as well. He could leave and they could be really bad for a long time. But it seems like he's a guy who's really hit the stagnation point now, and it's not really going to get much better. But anyhow, the quarterback, they don't have a confirmed starter. There's a 2-man battle in camp. Chase Cunningham was the starter last year after their original starter retired. He threw for 1,300 yards and 16 touchdowns, only threw 3 picks, but he suffered a season-ending injury. So true freshman Nick Vattiatu came into the side. Had a disastrous debut, actually, threw 5 picks in his debut game. But in the end, he was able to turn it around. He rebounded. He helped them reach bowl eligibility. And then he was flawless in the bowl game itself. Didn't throw a pick, threw for about 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. These two go and battle it out for the starting job there. Not bad for a true freshman, is it? Come into a side where your starter goes down, win a bowl game after throwing 5 picks in your first performance. But it seems like, there's a potential upstart there who could come through and cause a shock in the system.
Yeah, it seems like they've got two good options to have like only 1,300 yards, but like 12 passing touchdowns and 3 interceptions. That across like a whole season, that's probably mammoth numbers. So that's quite impressive for a short period. And then for the young man to come in, to throw 5 picks in your season, like your career opener, must be pretty damning. That must pretty much be a shock to the system. But so to then turn it round and then lead them to a bowl win, that shows a lot of maturity. So it seems like they're going to have a really heated battle there. That I think, in their best interest, I'd go with the young kid. Like I say, if you're going to try to turn these fortunes round, then let the kid see what he can do across the whole season.
Yeah, agreed. So the strengths and weaknesses of this team. The strengths is the secondary. They're returning 5 starters in the secondary from last year, including their cornerback, Teldrick Ross. He was a big producer last year. Obviously, they've lost Reed Blankenship, but they've returned every other starter there. So they're in a pretty good situation. They were ranked 40th in success against passing, and they were 9th in turnover margin, so they got a lot of turnovers, kept the ball really well. Those two factors coming together, that can win them some games there. But again, when it comes to the weakness side, there's a lot wrong with them. The run defense ranked 100th out of 130 in the FBS. A lot of teams exploited that. They just started running on them, stopped trying to pass it. They're only returning 50% of production on both sides of the ball, so they've lost a lot of players to the portal, to the draft. So, you're going to have to replace that. They might do even worse they were last year, but the offense is the big issue. 111th in rushing success, 103rd in passing success. When you're into the hundreds in both sides of the ball, both facets of the ball on your offense, that's not good. And with the production they've lost, they come into this season with the 121st ranked offensive roster strength in the division. So their offense is basically, on paper, ranked 121 out of 130. That's how bad it is. They lost all their starters on their offensive line, all but one, I think. They gave up 40 sacks last year, which was a high number. They're relying on JUCO guys to come in and try and defend the quarterback this year. And like I said, the coaching's an issue. It feels like this is a really stagnant team that ain't going to go nowhere under a coach that has not improved them over the years. It doesn't sound so rosy for these guys, does it? Obviously, you've got a good secondary, you've got a decent, passing defense, but when you get run on all the time, when your offense is so bad on both sides of the game, it's a lot to turn around, isn't it?
I worry for them this year. Like I say, that if you've got a defense that can't stop the run and you're relying on a team, that defense to keep maybe you under 7 to 14 points because the offense can't score points, that is a good way to lose every game of the year. Like I said, you can't stop the run, but you need that defense to keep them under certain points because your offense can't put them on the board. You are just not going to win many games because you can't put that pressure on a defense, knowing that the offense, when they get the ball back, they may just give it straight back. The defense will probably be knackered. So that is a recipe for disaster. And then returning only half your roster, lots of missing holes, lots of new cogs and parts moving that don't know each other.
Yeah,
it's worrying you. That does not sound like a good year. No matter how good or hard or easy the schedule is, they're going to have a real slog this year. And this could very well be the last year of his head coach tendency.
Well, you mentioned the schedule. I'll go through it now. They're actually the first opponent, the first FBS opponent for James Madison. James Madison working their way up this year. They travel to James Madison. Then they travel to Colorado State, where Jay Norvell's just gone. Then they're at home to Tennessee State. Then they're away at Miami, Florida, with Tyler Van Dyke at the helm. Then they're at home to UTSA, who are champions of the conference. Then they go to UAB. Then they're at home to Western Kentucky. Then they have a bye after a very bruising start. Then they've got road trips to UTEP and Louisiana Tech. They're at home to Charlotte and Florida Atlantic. And they round out the season at Florida International. But again, that's another potential rough start there, especially that Miami-UTSA combination.
Yeah, you look at it and you struggle to see where the wins will come from. Unless some of those teams are really bad, they're probably like looking at just try get to the bye, damage limitation, try at least have won a game, and then maybe pick off some of the conference balls. But you get to that bye and they've not won a game, like it might not get much better either.
I mean, even James Madison. I mean,
That,
you've watched a
yeah,
lot
James
of you've
Madison done
watched
well,
of
yeah.
FCS. That going to them, that's tough, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's got. Do you know what? It probably won't even be an upset. Like if James Madison just dropped a big number on them, it won't surprise me at all because we've seen James Madison put up big numbers over the years.
Yep, absolutely. But say there are always bright sparks on a team, and the player to watch I've got just to round out Middle Tennessee, their defensive end Jordan Ferguson. Now again, player I really like here. He's one of the best players in the CUSA, all told. He's 6'2", 262 pounds. Started his college career as a defensive tackle. He's transitioned out to defensive end, but he has the versatility from playing both positions. It's very evident. He can hit with the force of a defensive tackle, but he can play with the agility of a defensive end as well, and that makes him a very dangerous player. Last year, he had 57 tackles, a further 16.5 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. He returned 1 for a touchdown as well. The schedule is rough for Middle Tennessee this year, but again, this allows opportunity for individual players to shine, and someone who's put that sort of production up on a defense that wasn't great last year, and his versatility on there, this is a guy who, again, can really make a name for himself this season.
Oh yeah, he'll games like say Miami, he'll probably circle that as like that is gonna be a real test of him. He wants to go up against them really big sides because, like I say, he may not continue the career at MTSU. He could be looking at like if I put on a show this year and enter the portal, I could get picked up by a big side next year. So for him personally, it's a big year if he can help the team any way he can. But he's also thinking about probably his future as well. So if he's a star in that defense and he's going to shine, he knows where to put his assets on show.
Yep, absolutely. Looking forward to watching him. Right, let's move this on because there's still a couple of teams to go. We don't want to keep it way too long today. So next we are on to the North Texas Mean Green. Established in 1913. Got one of the best names going in college football there. Their stadiums, they play at the Apogee Stadium. Their 2021 record was alright. They finished 6-7. They were 5-3 in Conference USA, including they absolutely whacked UTSA at the end of the season. They deprived them of their unbeaten record throughout the year. They put over 40 points down on them. That was a real surprising one there, but always had a bit of a soft spot for North Texas because I was a big Jalen Darden fan the year before last. So their rivalry, it's SMU. It's called the Safeway Bowl. Now the Safeway name is derived from a challenge that North Texas head coach Matt Simon issued in 1994 after a 2-year break in the series. He stated, "I'd like to play because I think we could beat them, and my players feel the same way. If they'd like to play on a Safeway parking lot, so be it." And that's where it got its name from, the Safeway Bowl. North Texas are moving to the AAC next year, so this is going to become a conference as well as a rivalry game. SMU lead the series 34-6-1. Kind of like a Bristol City, Bristol Rovers type rivalry, that one.
A tad lopsided.
It is, but I love where the name comes from. Like, yeah, let's have a matchup in a Safeway parking lot. Let's call it the Safeway Bowl. Hell, some of these etymologies, these names are great. I think I'm going to enjoy this. Anyhow, moving on. The coach, he is called Seth Littrell. He is in his 7th season. This is his first head coach job. Took over in 2016. The team that he inherited just finished 1-11, but by year 2 he had led them to a CUSA West title and their first 9-win season in over 40 years. Followed that up with another 9-win season straight away. They blew out SMU in a rare rivalry win, put nearly 50 points on them, and they actually blew out Arkansas as well. SEC team put up over 40 points on them as well, which was a massive scalp for them at the time. Second half of the tenure, not been as good. There's no winning record in the last 3 years. They've struggled badly to find a replacement to Mason Fine. He was a huge quarterback there for them. He threw 12,500 yards, 100 touchdowns. This guy was, a a legend for them, basically, at the quarterback position. They've not replaced him very well. They did improve to 6-7 last season, but, you know, you feel like he needs to take the next step this year. He's 0-5 in ball games as well. He's not got over the hump there, but certainly someone who started out really well, and, you know, potentially could do better this year. But North Texas, it's a hard place to be able to compete there, isn't it? It's not exactly the biggest school.
No. Recruiting in Texas is goddamn hard. When you think about, like you say, you've got SMU, you've got the likes of Baylor, Texas, TCU, Texas Tech, the list goes on. So competing for players, like, no offense to them, they're kind of picking up the scraps of who's left over of the in-state players. Like say Mason Fine, knowing well, one of the conference's best quarterbacks of maybe the last decade, replacing him was never going to be easy. It feels like they're still in that honeymoon heartbreak period of him leaving and them trying to adjust to find a new signal caller. Yeah, 0-5. He's got to get that bowl game chip off his shoulder. That'll bother him every day that he wakes up that he's lost all his bowl games, because that's your championship. That's your bread and butter. If you're a coach in a team like this, you've got to be winning bowl games, because that's the only way you'll keep your job. So the next bowl game loss could be his last in his tenure, so it's going to be really big for him this year.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like something good needs to happen just to arrest this slide here. It's difficult. So, and he's got a problem on his hands because he needs to find a quarterback. So their quarterback is 29 years old. His name is, and I can't pronounce the end name because, and the guy who I was watching as I tried to pronounce this is terrible. His name is Austin Aun. I think it's Austin Aun. He is 29 years old this season. He's had 2 seasons in the job. He's only thrown for 3,641 yards, 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, so not even a 1-to-2 interception to touchdown ratio. So he's been pedestrian at best. They have put some competition in though this year. He's going to face off against Jace Ruder, who is a 4-star commit from UNC. He's transferred in. J.D. Head has arrived from Louisiana Tech, but the favourite to supplant him is former Memphis quarterback Grant Gunnell, who might be able to get in there. Now, you know, my knowledge doesn't go that far. Have you heard of any of those? Anything you can shed a light on with them 3?
Yep, I've heard of Grant Gunnell before. I'd say he's been solid. I think he was probably at the time where I think Memphis, he was Brady White's backup. Like I say, he's played around. Like I say, the name rings a bell as well. I don't know if he's been in the Pac-12 before, but replacing Mason Fine wasn't ever going to be something that was going to easy, take a while. So 4 or 5 QBs this year, you'd expect them, at least half of them, to see the field or playing time, because he's there for 2 years. And 29, he's actually older than me. Like I say, he's only in his 2nd year there. Like, by college standards, he is a bit of a pensioner.
Yeah.
So how long is he really going to play? He hasn't lit the world light in 2 years. So there's these young guys nipping at his heels. He'll do really well to keep the job. And for a 4-star kid, he's coming from North Carolina. Like, you should probably worry that just because he's had the job for 2 years, certainly don't mean he's going to be having it this year. So it's going to be actually interesting to see. There's a lot of new guys there. Someone could be that future signal caller. So that is a good thing to have. Lots of guys to work out for the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I'll go through the strengths and weaknesses now. I'll do the weakness first. It's quarterback. The offensive passing success was 112th out of 130 last year. He just has not delivered whatsoever. The tools are there. They have an experienced receiver core. The offensive line is somewhat stable, and they do have a complementary running game, but they have to find the guy. And until they find the guy, it's going to hold them back. Do have strengths, though. The Mean Green defense, that lived up to its moniker last year. They finished 17th in defensive rush success and 36th in defensive pass success. So on both sides of the ball, they were very successful defending the run and defending against the pass. They are returning just 60% of the production from last year, but, you know, 3/5 should still be strong. It may not reach the heights. The offense is going to have to do better if they wish to replicate and move forward. But again, they've got the base there to do that. Their schedule, they start away at UTEP, Then they're at home to SMU and Texas Southern. They're away to UNLV, who are trash. They're away to Memphis, a lot harder. At home to FAU, at home to Louisiana Tech. Then they're away at UTSA and Western Kentucky. At home to Florida International. Away to UAB, and at home to Rice. I don't know what you think about that. There are some in there. UNLV are not that great, but SMU are. Memphis, pretty decent. It's a tough schedule for them.
Yeah, it's mixed bag. Like I say, a lot of teams in the Conference USA this year, unfortunately, have been burdened with those out-of-conference games where they could get slapped about a bit. Tanner Mordecai, probably his final year at SMU, he had them scoring like 30, 40 points a week last year. Let's say, so their defense is going to be severely tested against a QB that just lets the arm go wild. So that could be a fun one to watch. Their passing offense against that stern defense. Then the other games, UNLV, I'd like to think that is a game that they can win out of conference, and that will help them further down the line. But yeah, it's a mixed bag. It's not the worst schedule. There's games there definitely to win. Like I say, it's just they've got a lot of things going for them. Like I say, but this car currently hasn't got anyone to steer it. There's no direction. By the SMU game, or by, like say, third week, someone has to have merged as QB1. If by then they're still changing, giving quarterbacks different drives, then the season will probably be a write-off. So someone has to take the ball by the horns there.
Yeah, agreed fully. And like I say, the right guy is going to walk into a decent situation. He's walking into a good situation behind the offensive line, which is where their player to watch is. That is centre Manasseh Mose. He's probably by far the best offensive lineman in this division now. He's highly experienced. He's started 48 games for North Texas, which is pretty much every game they've played since he arrived there. Started at right guard, I think, for the first 2 seasons. Then he's transitioned into center. The North Texas running attack, it averaged 233.5 yards per game last season. That's just a rushing attack. That was first in the CUSA, and it was 5th in the entire nation. So this was a potent running team, and he is the anchor of that offensive line that allowed that to happen. The versatility is going to appeal at the next level. A center and a guard type, teams are looking for depth on their offensive lines, especially over multiple positions. But I mean, this guy, I believe he's Polynesian. I think he's from sort of that area of the world, but he's built strong. He plays strong, and he was head of one of the best rushing attacks in football last year.
Yep, a good strong centre is an anchor for a good QB. And I watched North Texas last year. I think it might have been North Dakota State. I think there was a game even the season before, and they run the ball incredibly well. Like I said, they've got one of those teams that will use like 3-4 running backs. Everyone is just as good as the last, and they can all chip in 50, 60, 70 yards. So it's a very good offense there. It just needs a quarterback. And it's as easy as to say as that, but even with 5 guys, you still might not have the guy. It certainly takes some time for someone to emerge.
Exactly. They need a quarterback. That's the big thing for North Texas this year. If they can get that, then they could have a potentially really good season. Moving on, we're in the second half of the division, getting down now. So we got the Rice Owls, established in 1912. Again, another very old side. They play at Rice Stadium. 2021 record was 4-8. They were 3-5 in the CUSA. These have a few rivalries here, so there's 3 altogether. They have a rivalry with SMU. That is called the Battle for the Mayor's Cup. So it's on hold at the minute, I believe, because of conference movement and that. But SMU lead the series 48-41-1. So, yeah, that's on hold. But Rice are going back to the AAC, that's right. So this will come back to life sometime in the near future. They have a rivalry against Houston. It's called the Bayou Bucket Classic. The winner of the game receives the Bayou Bucket, which is a full-size trophy with a golden bucket on top. They don't play in the same conference, but the non-conference scheduling allows them to meet. Houston are winning that 32-11. And then the very loosest possible definition of a rivalry, they technically have a rivalry with the Texas Longhorns. Rice have won twice in that game since 1961. It's basically as one-sided as Notre Dame and Navy is. that's no competition, them two. But some fun ones in there. Do you know of any of those you ever watched before? Because I know you love your rivalry games.
I've seen the trophy with the bucket on top. Like I say, it looks quite good, but as you mentioned, like very loose because those teams do not play each other regular, hardly ever play each other, so it's hard to call it a rivalry. But once they get back with SMU, that should be fun to watch. You can tell by the scoreline that they don't play SMU often because Rice have been pretty bad for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So they can't have won one of those rivalry games very recently.
I think they said it was between the 1920s and the 1940s when Rice won 20 or something like that. That's where a lot of the wins come from. So, but yeah, Rice, like you say, not in a good position at this moment in time. So their coach, Mike Bloomgren, he's in his 5th season. Spent time with the Jets actually in the NFL on their coaching staff, 2007 to 2010. Moved to Stanford in the college game where he was for 6 years. Worked his way up the ranks to offensive coordinator. Then got the call for his head coach job at Rice, but it's not been pretty. 4 years in, he's 11-31 overall, 9-20 in the CUSA. He's just got 2 out-of-conference wins in 4 seasons. If you're looking for positive, they had the best season last year under him. They finished 4-8, but I mean, you can't help but think one more bad year, and this is probably it for him.
I want to give him this year. He seems as stable at his job as Boris Johnson was. Like it's hard to believe he's lasted this long. That record is pretty abysmal.
Yeah, I think we're going to be talking about the hot seat guy very soon in relation to him. And this season, it just does not look like it's going to be pretty. So the quarterback, the position is open. I think their quarterback left them this off-season. So it's rumoured to go to Wiley Green. He is in his 5th year at Rice. His stats read 1,000 yards thrown, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Yeah, that's
in 5 years.
In 5 years, he's got 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. But wait, the guy who is challenging him for the spot is another returner at Rice. His name is Javoni Johnson. He's been there 4 years. He has 322 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. That is the Rice quarterback situation at the moment. I think we can quickly just say dire and move on. Yeah.
It's like you've got a chocolate bar and half of it is made of dog crap. Do you throw it in the bin or do you just bite one half off and leave the other? Like,
I think both.
It's not the best place to be, is it? If you're that head coach, like I would probably be tendering my resignation. I'd be typing out a draft of my resignation pretty quickly because these 2 QBs are going to cost you your job.
Yeah, exactly. Strengths and weaknesses. Strengths, I've literally put, not even the uniforms can save them from this one.
No, they are bland, just blue.
Yeah, the uniforms are poor, so I can't even use that as a strength. There is individual talent on this team, but no area is really cumulatively strong enough to be labelled a strength. The weaknesses, everything. The overall roster strength is 119th in the nation out of 130. The defense was their sort of shining light under Bloomgren the first few years, but in defensive efficiency, it was 54th in 2020. It was 123rd last season. It more than doubled or dropped in terms of what went on. The defensive rush and pass success was 104th and 119th. So way into the hundreds on both aspects of the ball when playing defense. They can't defend the run. They certainly can't defend the pass. There's only 11 teams who did worse. They're returning 70% of their production, but I mean, like 70% of a lower number. Yeah, exactly. 70% of 100 is not 70% of 1,000. So, it's the better guys might be hanging around, but it's the same defensive coordinator who saw them go 54th to 123rd. Offense couldn't rush the ball to save their life. They finished 115th in rushing success. The passing success was a weird anomaly. They were 32nd in the country when it came to passing success, when passing the ball. But the trouble was, they didn't do it. The coaching, even though the running game was 115th or something in the country, they ran the ball 60% of the time and they passed it just 40%. So the one strength of their offense they decided not to utilise, and the one that just wouldn't work they kept trying to do. It's like Patricia, just trying to run a ball when it was not possible. And as I mentioned, the offense has suffered major portal losses. 3 wide receivers, the running back, their tight end, and 2 offensive linemen have all transferred out. They all decided enough was enough, we're getting out of here. And I think they've brought in 4 guys through the portal to replace them. I think if anything shouts dire situation, that is it at Rice.
Yeah, those receivers and tight end definitely just got fed up of blocking for a team that runs the ball like shit. Yeah. And just, let's say, if you know you're able to do something, but just choose not to do it because you're trying to force a style of offense, like good riddance to you. Like that is not good. So
no. And do you want to know the 5? So we'll do the schedule. Finish this off quick because there's not much good to say here. So the first 5 games away at USC. They're playing McNeese State at home. Then they're at home to the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, who were ranked last year. Then they're away at Houston. Then they're at home to the University of Alabama and Birmingham, who are one of the better teams in CUSA this year. Then they have a bye. Then they're away at Florida Atlantic, Louisiana Tech. Then they're at home to Charlotte and UTEP. Away at Western Kentucky. At home to UTSA. Away at North Texas. It could all be over by the bye there. Going to Houston and USC and playing the Raging Cajuns at home? Yikes.
I guarantee they lose all those games by at least 50 points. If you lose to Rice Owls this year, if you lose to the Rice Owls this season, just take a really long, hard look at yourself, because there's not much coming back from that.
No, there is not. And like I say, there's some individual talent there. The guy that I've singled out, Gabe Taylor, the safety, he's 5'10", 190 pounds. Did step up as one of the best tacklers last season. He had 56 tackles, 44 were solo. Obviously, they got thrown on a lot, so a lot was asked of him. He's got a tackle for loss, 3 interceptions, 8 pass breakups, a forced fumble. Probably going to pile up the productivity again because he's going to be called into action a lot this year. Some of those teams, Houston, for example, the Raging Cajuns, they love to throw the ball. So he's going to have the ball thrown at him a hell of a lot there. So not good for Rice, not good. Anyhow, move on to maybe a better situation here. The University of Alabama and Birmingham Blazers, they're known as UAB for short, established in 1991. They play at Protective Stadium. Their 2021 record, very good, 9-4. They were 6-2 in CUSA, finished only behind UTSA and Western Kentucky, who were ridiculously good sides last year. Their rivalries, this is another interesting rivalry one. So with Memphis, that rivalry is called the Battle of the Bones. So UMB and Memphis, they play this rivalry game. The winning team gets a 100-pound bronze statue of a rack of ribs. This pays homage to the city's prominence in barbecues. Obviously, they love their barbecues down there. So a 100-pound bronze statue of a rack of ribs. The rivalry ended when Memphis moved to the AAC after 2012. However, they're following them. UAB are following them to the AAC now, so maybe it might just be about to be reborn. UAB leads the series 10-5, but Memphis won the last one, so they have the giant rack of ribs up in their trophy cabinet at the minute. They've also got rivalries with Troy. They've met 12 times. They met consistently till 2014. The rivalry is going to be renewed in 2028 because they're again out of conference. They've not been playing one another. Troy is leading that series 7-5, and then they have a rivalry with Southern Miss. They've met 18 times, and it's 11-7 in favour of Southern Miss. That rack of ribs statue is amazing, and I would love to play for that. Again, are there any of these rivalries you've seen in the flesh? Oh well, you've watched before.
No. Let's say it's hard. Let's say because they don't play each other often, but I'd certainly like to see them play the Memphis game. Memphis won't be easy, but I'd like to see the trophy. It's probably gathered a lot of dust on that
I tell you
trophy
what,
cabinet.
It's spectacular. Just go and look for the Battle of the Bones trophy. It is amazing. I wish I could show it you. I wish I could be streaming this now. I'm going to have to fix that for the next one. But yeah, it's truly a spectacular trophy. So yeah, something to play for there. So, right, this is the coach. They don't have one. So their previous head coach was Bill Clark. He resigned on June the 24th this year. Got back problems. He's been there 7 seasons. He's seen UAB through the turmoil. You mentioned it in the earlier in the show. The football program was scrapped, I think in 2014. Reformed in about 2016, 2017. He was there before it was scrapped. He has been there after it was reborn. Since it's been reformed, he's led them to their first championship win at FBS level. They won the CUSA a few years ago, and he's led them to their first ever bowl win as well. So really, through a very tumultuous time, building the team back up from literally absolute nothing, he's left it on a very good field here. He leaves a 9-4 team there. The offensive coordinator Brian Vincent has been named the interim head coach for the 2022 season, but that's a big blow for them to lose a coach who will be so valued there. He's installed a winning culture, a winning mentality. To lose him, especially this close to the season when you really can't replace him, that's a real big shame for UAB.
Yeah, like I say, it sounds like maybe it's been a lingering personal issue, if it's for health or personal reasons. So something that he's probably been toying with. If it's a long-time offensive coordinator, you'd like to think edge in safe hands. Hopefully nothing should change. You'd like to think everything just goes without a hitch, but things aren't like that. But if he's got the ethos, got the system down, you'd like to think that actually they won't even notice. Like I say, if he does well, the job will be his. If things don't go well, they'll be looking for a head coach maybe during the season. So it's one of them things where it's an audition. So it's a really big opportunity to get his first head coach gig.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's been left in a really good position. Like you say, 9-4 team. The quarterback situation's good. The quarterback is Dylan Hopkins. He saw some game time as a freshman in 2019, took a backseat in 2020, but the start of 2021, he came in. Tyler Johnston III was supposed to be the starter there. He came in, supplanted him, made the spot his own, led the team to 9 wins, threw for 2,274 yards, 18 touchdowns, only threw 7 picks, and he fits the coach's style of pushing the ball downfield. He's got a big arm on him, and he can throw it pretty much anywhere he wants to. Carried in 5 rushing touchdowns as well, and UAB, they've not rested on their laurels. Johnston left, the old one. They've bought in Baylor transfer Jacob Zeno. Know a little bit about him. He's pretty decent, just not had his chance at Baylor. He's going to push Hopkins should he sort of get a bit complacent about his spot. But again, this is one of the better quarterback situations in this division. You've got a 9-win team. You've got a quarterback who's come in, won the spot, wants to keep it on his own. You know, you can't really ask more as an interim head coach to get in this gig, can you?
No, I say he shouldn't have to change a lot. And teams that don't make a lot of changes, that find consistency, but bring in a bit of competition for a guy that's probably already got the gig, things should go without a hitch, and they shouldn't find any issues. If anything, it should spur the QB on even more if he's now got some legitimate challenge and someone behind him pushing him all the way. So it's the best position to be in for a guy that is looking to be named the full-time head coach.
Exactly. And, you know, strengths and weaknesses of this team. The offense is in a healthy state. They were 35th in rushing success last year, 54th in passing success. So it's well balanced. It's not just relying on one aspect of the offense. Both are working in tandem well together. 3 of the offensive line are returned. They've also got the backup guys have a lot of experience there as well. So the offensive line's very experienced. They're loaded at the skill position. The running back room, they have 4 legitimate threats at running back, including the guy I'm going to highlight in a minute. But they have one of the deepest, best running back rooms in a lot of divisions out there. And at receiver, they're stacked as well. All they really lack is a true explosive outside guy. But they've got a wide receiver who I think was averaging about 25 yards a catch last year. He ain't a burner, but they're set just about everywhere on that offense. And the defense is good as well. It was 44th in the country altogether, 28th in run success, 43rd in pass success. So again, it's very balanced. They can defend the run, defend the pass in equal measure. There's no real weakness on this team, and they're returning 70% of the production. Most of the linebackers and the secondary have come back, and there's a solid base to work from. And when it comes to weaknesses, there's just a couple of areas at the team. The defensive line, tight end, there's not a lot of snaps there, but they've got good players who are, who need to learn, but, they've got good recruits in. and they should be able to fix those holes. The biggest issue is what happens with the coach leaving. Now, that could have a really bad effect on this team. They may, sort of, not down tools, but when you have a coach in who inspires such success in his team, when you lose him, there is a chance that it could go south and they don't take to the next guy very well. But if that doesn't happen, UAB potential CUSA champions this year?
Yeah, they need to be trying to get back to the conference game this year. Like, they've got the roster, they've got the mentality, they've got the playbook. It's probably all pretty much in place. Like I say, it's just, will the players be able to step up and play for this head coach like they did the last? If they know him well, you'd imagine there's absolutely no issue. But like Gary Patterson has just left TCU after like 20 years. Sometimes players just resonate with a head coach and just can't find that with new guys, and you just don't get 100% of them. But there's no reason why this team should not be competing to try be in a title game again next year.
No, and with Western Kentucky losing a lot, which we're going to talk about very shortly, the opportunity is there. But the schedule, they start against Alabama A&M, where Akil Glass came from last year. Very good HBCU school. Then they're away at Liberty, obviously sans Malik Willis now. Then they're at home to Georgia Southern, away at Rice, at home to Middle Tennessee, at home to Charlotte, away at Western Kentucky and Florida Atlantic, at home to UTSA and North Texas. Then they finish away at LSU and away at Louisiana Tech. So away at Liberty, away at LSU, Georgia Southern could potentially be good. They've just changed this year. That's a lot of tests for them. But if they want to be that championship team, like you say, this is probably the schedule they want.
Yeah, they want to test themselves. And a Liberty minus a Malik Willis, for me, not to worry about. I won't be scared of Liberty now they've lost Malik Willis, because they looked fragile last time with him being out STEM players. So I think they'll like their chances against that. And LSU, late on in the season, second last game, they could very well have booked a place in the championship game already. That game could be a total non-factor, or it could be pretty crucial. But they might just go out there and have fun and just try to cause a big upset. But that'll be a big stage as well. Like I say, LSU always is.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to be tough, but hopefully we see the best out of them. And the player to watch, I said the running back room is absolutely stacked. At the head of that running back room, his name is Dwayne McBride, known as Debo. So Sincere McCormack was the dominator on the ground in the CUSA last year for San Antonio. Now it's this guy's turn. He is now the star running back in the CUSA. And the CUSA has shown that it can provide good running backs to the NFL. So he had 1,371 rushing yards last season and 13 touchdowns. And it's just one against garbage teams. He put up 144 yards on UTSA. He put up 183 yards on BYU. They were both ranked teams in the top 25 in the nation last year. That's over 300 yards he's put up on there. He's not a receiving back. He's your traditional physical running back. He will give you as good as it gets when it comes to contact. He's really good at finding the gaps in the line of scrimmage. He sees the plays developing. He'll run. You'll not see a gap there. He'll hit it just at the right time. He has that ability to see where the gaps are coming. And you can't bring him down. I've seen so many people tackle him. They can't bring him down. He carries on going. I think this UAB running back room is likely to be the best skill position unit we'll see in the CUSA this year. And this guy, 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns. Not a bad year, is it?
Nope. And like I said, that's a conference that had Sincere McCormack in, and he was very able to compete with him in those numbers, which says a lot. And a team like that is able to run the ball so strong, that just opens up the avenue for QBs to just pick you off in the passing game, with a stats receiver as well. So this offense has the potential to be very dangerous. And that LSU side and teams like that, they're going to have to be aware, don't take these for fools. Like I say, people will underestimate UAB just because of their size and who they are, but that will probably be their downfall.
Yeah, agreed. Right, we'll move it on. There's a couple of teams left, and we've been going a while, so we'll get through these as quick as. So we start off with the University of Texas and El Paso Miners. That is UTEP. Sorry about all these abbreviations, but there are so many abbreviated teams in this league. We have to try and explain them all. Established in 1914, the stadium's the Sun Bowl. The record last year is 7-6, 4-4 in the CUSA. The rivalry is with New Mexico State. It's called the Battle of I-10, like a lot of rivalries in the college game. It's basically based on the road that separates them. It's the I-10. There's like 30-40 miles between them, something like that. But they do play for 2 trophies when it comes to this game. They play for the Silver Spade Trophy and the Mayor's Cup. The Silver Spade dates back to 1955. It's the replica of a prospector's shovel from an abandoned mine in the Organ Mountains. The Mayor's Cup was added in 1982, and it is nicknamed the Brass Spittoon. I'm assuming it's a brass spittoon. Have you seen this one? Because I know you see like some of the trophies for them. Have you seen this trophy? Either of them, the Silver Spade or the Mayor's Cup?
I think I've seen the Mayor's Cup before, yeah. If it's a brass spittoon, I'm pretty sure it's so that like you go like you're hacking. I think that's what a spittoon was back then, like say.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've seen it. It looks grubby, but I've seen the Battle of the I-10, like say, and it's pretty well thought out between 2 sides that they make a good go of it. Like I say, it's something that's got a bit of traditional history towards it because it's 2 quite old-fashioned sides playing the hot desert.
Yeah, agreed. I'll have to have a look. I've not seen either of them. Anyhow, moving on. The head coach, Dana DeMel, 5th season, been coaching since 1987. Just for record, I wasn't even born back then. Had a 22-13 stint at Wyoming in the late 19th, 97 to 99. He went 8-26 at Houston between 2000 and 2002. Didn't have another head coaching job until he went to UTEP in 2018. He's been a running backs coach, tight ends coach, offensive coordinator in the interim. Start of his tenure at UTEP was rough. His first 3 years, the records were 1-11, 1-11, 3-5. He had 1 conference win in 3 years, which for the CUSA is atrocious. However, they did finally turn a corner last year. The patience paid off. They went 7-6. They had 4 conference wins, and they went bowling. They went to the New Mexico Bowl, although they were defeated by Fresno State. But many franchises would not have put up with that for 3 years. But maybe it pays off.
Yeah, it is. To have those records and get a 4th year in a shrewd business like college football is pretty remarkable. But he did return that loyalty with a somewhat successful year, which is nice to see. But now he needs to follow it up, which is probably the hard thing. You can't just go back to a 1-11 year now and expect to get the same loyalty because he'll get axed very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. He's on a very short shrift, and he'll probably have to do the same again to keep his job. But he's in a good situation. The quarterback, Gavin Hardison, 6'3", 205 pounds, 4th year at UTEP, steadily made his way up from a freshman, didn't see much of the field, took the starter's job last season, threw for 3,218 yards, 18 touchdowns. The team took a big step forward in their development with him. His arm is a cannon, which can attack all areas of the field. It's his big weapon. However, there's a reason he didn't declare for the draft last year, and he's gone back for another year. His career completion ratage is 54%. That is very, very, very bad. And he threw 13 picks as well last season, so the ball security is an issue as well. Doesn't rush the ball. He's got minus 83 rushing yards on 85 career carries. He is a pocket passer by trade. Some good in there, but 54% is shocking. And he's going to need to be a lot better on that if UTEP want to be in a bowl game again.
Yeah. What he needs to do is, even if he has to sacrifice yardage, stop throwing exceptions and get to 60% percentage. Even if that means he only throws for 2,500 yards. Like I say, but if he gets that up to 60% and he throws like less than 10, 11 interceptions on the year, that'd be a massive improvement to the numbers that are there right now. Because the numbers do sound inflated if the passing percentage is low and interceptions are high. All those passing yards are pretty pointless.
Yeah, agreed. Right, strengths in this team. They're returning 73% of their production from last year. 80% on the defensive side of the ball. That was the foundation they built on last year. Linebacker's the only problem they're really struggling on, but they've got 2 guys there who've played 800 snaps each at the position. Very experienced, just lacking depth. The defense was ranked 26th and 44th in rush and pass success, which was really good. He seems to have hit on a winning formula. Big defense, just good enough offense, and that got him the wins last year. The weakness is the discipline, 124th out of 130 in penalties per game, turnover margin ranking of 123rd, so they kept losing the ball, they never got it back. You know, that is a few losses on its own. Been bad. You need to significantly improve on both of those. The offense is not good either. The running game is poor. The passing game is a little bit better, but they lost Jacob Cowing, their star wide receiver. He's gone to your in-state rivals, Arizona. They lost Justin Garrett, the next best receiver there, and obviously Hardison has his issues. So again, it's looking like they won't do what they did last year. I mean, Jacob Cowing's a big loss, and you've got to play against him next year. He's a damn good receiver.
Yeah, it's when you add all those things up together, seeing them get back to 7-6 or getting back to a ball game is very difficult.
Yeah, agreed. And you know, the schedule's all right. You know, they're out of state games. They're away at Oklahoma, which is a really tough one. But then they're at home to New Mexico State. They're away at New Mexico. They're at home to Boise State. Boise were a bit meh last year. They can win a few of those.
Yeah, like I say, there's some winnable games there. If you minus out Oklahoma, which would be a blowout, Boise State will probably find some way to beat them. But the rest of all there is not bad. In conference, it's fine. In conference games are what you win are usually getting to a bowl game.
Yeah, definitely. The player to watch, Praise Amawule, the defensive end. He's a junior this year. Played 3 seasons there. Got good production on all 3 of the years. So, again, Kusa has some defensive ends who are going to shine this year. So, hopefully all goes well for him. So, I'm just going to go through these last couple quickly now because we have been on a long time and I don't want to keep you any longer than I have to. So, we've got UTSA, our favourite team from last year in the CUSA. They play at the Alamodome. They went 12-2. They were 7-1 in the CUSA. They were the champions of their conference. They were champions of the division. Just that North Texas blowout that still lingers really badly in my mind. I just don't get how that happened. The rivalry is Texas State, the I-35 rivalry, again, interstate. You know, they were established in 2011. They've only played 4 times. UTSA lead this rivalry 4-0. More of a basketball rivalry. Apparently it goes back a while. Jeff Traylor is the coach. It's his 2nd season. Not a bad start to his head coaching career. It's his 3rd season. Sorry, he's had 2 full seasons. First season he went 7-5. They finished 2nd in the division. Last year they went crazy. They were one of the last undefeated teams. They went 12-2. They were 7-1 a conference record. They lost their bowl game, I believe. I can't remember who against. But, you know, make no mistake, this is a guy who's come in, he's turned them around very quickly. They are tight, they are a disciplined ship, they are aggressive, they are hard to beat, they pound the ball hard on the ground. You know, they do just enough in the passing game. They're going to be just as strong this year, even with the guys they've lost. This guy's a really good head coach, isn't he?
He is, yeah. This team has really come out of nowhere. Like I said, they were not founded that long ago. 7-5 to jump straight to 12. Like I said, last team, they were just dominating. I'm not sure how they do without Sincere. To replace a guy like that is going to be really difficult. One of the best backs in the entire nation. But if anyone can do it, I've got some faith that this team can do it because returning players and they have good complementary players as well. Just a very strong side. In a CUSA that's not that strong, these are probably still their favourites on opening day to reclaim and keep their title.
I'd say so. And that all goes through the quarterback. They've probably got the best quarterback in the division here, Frank Harris. He's criminally underrated. He's a second-year starter. I think he's the best guy in the division by a margin. He is known first and foremost for his rushing. If you say his name, people will go, he's a rushing quarterback. He's got 1,220 rushing yards and 15 rushing touchdowns to his name. He's also got a receiving touchdown. And he's a genuine threat if you wish to wield the dual ability with him. But he's way too underrated as a passer. He's got 5,293 yards passing, 42 touchdowns, just 14 interceptions. That's 1 to every 3 touchdowns. The completion percentage is 66%. That is very healthy, so he takes care of the ball. And yes, he's lost Sincere McCormack this year, but, you know, I think he's underrated. I think he could potentially make waves in a draft this year, if he has another good year.
Well, yeah, because a quarterback that we'll talk about in the next team did the exact same thing. he managed to get himself picked in a very healthy round, and there's no reason why this guy can't go in a very similar place.
No, exactly. And he's also my player to watch. This UTSA team, whether it went through the running back this year, it's going to go through the quarterback this year. The strength of the team, you mentioned it there, very healthy. They're bringing 70% of the production back, which means a lot of the key guys are coming back. 82% production on the offense is coming back. So that is really good. So they have lost Sincere McCormack. They've lost some pieces, but they've not sat on their laurels. They've gone out into the transfer portal to try and replace him. So obviously, Sincere McCormack is gone. He is their star running back. But they went into the portal. They went to Arkansas. They got Traylon Smith from Arkansas. Now, he had problems with injury last year, but I watch Arkansas a lot because of KJ Jefferson. And on his day, he's a bloody good running back. And he is more than capable of coming in and getting back some of that production that we're going to lose from him. And then obviously the left tackle Spencer Burford left as well for the NFL, but they've gone into the portal again and they've grabbed the Northwestern tackle Payne Hebert, and he's a good tackle on his day as well, probably one of the better players on that Northwestern team. You're going to watch Northwestern in Ireland soon, and you know they're not a good team, and the few good players they had have been poached through the transfer portal. They were 4th in the country in turnover margins, so they were elite at keeping and retrieving the ball, which helps a lot. The weakness is, the defense was middle of the road. It was good. It was not great. It's nothing to sniff at, but you've got some big departures. Tariq Woolen, the cornerback, a stud. Responsible for a lot of them turnovers they had, and if they can't fill those gaps, the rating may slide and the defense may drag the team down in general. But I mean, if they can just find a cornerback there, if these guys they've gone in the portal have done well, then they're in good hands, are they not?
Yeah, they don't need to replace them with stars. They just need to just plug a gap for a year. Like I say, as long as they can find bodies there that can hold their own, they don't have to find the next one, or they don't have to get another 1,500 yard back. Someone that can just take the pressure off the quarterback and is able to move the chains, and the offense should probably still tick over at a healthy rate. You don't have to blast teams like they did every year.
No. I'll not go through all the schedules now because we've been going a while. I'll just do... So the out-of-conference schedule they have this year is actually their first 4 weeks is all out-of-conference games. So they are at home to Houston, then they're away at Army, they're away at Texas. I don't know if that's the Longhorns. It might be the Longhorns. They're at home to Texas Southern. Now, Army were decent last year. Houston were very good. And
that's a hard first 3 games.
And I think it is the Longhorns, because it would... Texas on its own usually means the Longhorns, doesn't it? And then there's Texas Southern. Yeah. They'll win that, but they'll be tested in that first month.
Yeah, that is if they want to defend their title. If they want to defend the title, they have to win at least one.
Yeah.
If they lose all 3 of them, getting back to the title game, going like 9-3, could be hard.
Yeah, agreed. So that first month is critical. If they come through that 3-1, then conference is theirs. I don't think it's even going to be a struggle if you're putting them teams away, I reckon. Right, and then we're going to move it on to the last one. We finally got there. So, one of the best offenses in the entire country last year. Second best, behind only Ohio State. That's the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. They've been around since 1908. Their record in 2021 was 9-5. They were 7-1 in the CUSA. They were the Eastern champions. They fell to UTSA in the championship game, but then they went on and won their bowl game. The rivalries in Middle Tennessee, we've discussed that. East Kentucky, the Battle of the Bluegrass, that is inactive now. And Murray State, that is the battle for the Red Belt, that is also inactive. Those are back from their FCS days. The coach is Tyson Helton. So his 4th season there, he is the mastermind behind that explosive offense last year. One of the greatest the CUSA's probably ever seen. Bailey Zappe broke every record going, including Joe Burrow's passing yards record in that championship season at LSU a few years back. Get this, their offense last year, 7,494 total scrimmage yards, 76 touchdowns, average of 535 yards of offense per game. He's 23-16 over his first 3 years, got them to a bowl game every season, won 2 of the 3 bowl games, but when all is said and done, they are going to be hit harder than losses than any team, and it's not even close this season.
Nope, they lost three huge players. They lost D'Angelo Malone, Jeff Stearns, and Bailey Zappa. And they were three of their biggest contributors all last season. And air raid football really isn't good. It's really not good to rely on, like I say, when you're such a pass-heavy side. So when you lose the nation's best quarterback, one of the nation's best receivers, and all you know is how to throw the ball, it makes life very difficult. This year could be really difficult because they're going to have to adjust immensely to try and make up for their losses.
Yes, that they are. And at quarterback, that's one of their biggest losses. Bailey Zappa is no more. However, they've gone for experience when replacing him. They've not put a young guy in. They've gone for, and again, I'm going to butcher his last name, I'm sorry, but it's Jarrett Doger is what I'm calling him, and he is known...
I know.
Jarrett Doger is very... Is it Doger?
Jarrett Doige.
Doige, that's it.
Doige.
I'm sorry, Jarrett. Jarrett Doige. He is known as Schrodinger's quarterback because you don't know which version of him you're going to get. You got to open the box and see what you're going to get. He's got the unenviable task of following in Bailey Zappa's footsteps, but he is no slouch. He has spent 2 years at Bowling Green State, 3 years at West Virginia. He has thrown for 10,494 yards and 79 touchdowns. The crazy part is, if that was going against Bailey Zappa's stats, that's less than a season and a half of productivity. He's thrown 39 picks. He's got a 64% completion rating, just 7 rushing touchdowns. He is, again, a pocket guy who don't run that much. I mean, on the scale of it, it's not a bad pickup for them. He's highly experienced. He's thrown for a lot of yards. He's not going to be Bailey Zappa, but they could have done a lot worse, couldn't they?
Yeah. He's, like I said, experienced. When he came from West Virginia Mountaineers, it wasn't even just him. You just didn't know which team was going to turn up. A lot of those losses, like I said, they weren't on him. Very experienced quarterback. And for him to drop down to the CUSA is probably pretty big. He probably could have got offers at a Power 5 school. I believe he probably could have stayed at a team, maybe even in, say, like the Big Ten. So dropping down, it's going to be good. He's very experienced. He's got big shoes to fill, though. I feel like they're going to have to tone down the air raid. They have to find a complementary run game because Bailey was throwing the ball anywhere between like 40 and 60 times a week. You don't want Jared doing that. This is not the quarterback where you just go all out. I'm going to pass the shit out of you for 600 yards a game because, like I say, he throws interceptions.
Exactly. And, you know, you just can't have that. But just to put down the scale of the problems, I'll do the strengths and weaknesses. I've done the weaknesses first. So this Western Kentucky team has suffered more than anybody. They have lost Bailey Zappa at quarterback. Jared Stearns, like you say, his favourite wide receiver, is gone. They've lost their starting right tackle, their starting left tackle. They lost Mitchell Tinsley, who was another good wide receiver for them. On the defense, they lost D'Angelo Malone, the edge player. They lost Antoine Kincaid, the safety. They are only bringing back 55% of their production from last season and only 42% on that offense. Less than half. You know, 2/5 of what they had last year is all they are returning. It is a lot to lose. And they've lost both their coordinators as well. The offensive coordinator who oversaw this is gone. He's been replaced in-house by a guy called Ben Arbuckle. He's been with the organisation, but he's a first-time offensive coordinator. He's the youngest offensive coordinator in the entire FBS. So how much trust are you going to put into him to start running an offense which has been butchered and is starting from the ground instantly? So their experience is gone. Their experienced OC is gone. They've lost their defensive coordinator as well. There's been upheaval in the coaching ranks. They have hired Tyson Summer. He was the old Georgia Southern head coach. He's been a defensive coach, a coordinator as well. He's actually a really good pickup for them, but their defense ranked 90th against the rush and against the pass last year, so a lot of improvement needs to be made there. When it comes back to strengths, you have to believe that the coach is going to get it right because he's taken them to bowls 3 successive times, and I guess if he gets them back to a bowl this year after everything they've lost, that counts as a win, right?
Yeah, I think to get back to the championship game this year might be asking a little bit too much. But if they were to go if they got 7-8 wins, I'd say that's probably a success when you realise how much they've had to plug and play, recycle, try getting guys that just don't even know the system yet. It's going to be a real slog this year. Like I say, they're going to fall from grace last year, but also for everything good they did last year, they were also really frustrating. Like I say, they were really hard to watch because they could score 55, but they'd concede 40. It'd be a 50-40 win. The defense was pretty dreadful. If they can buckle up the defense, their offense won't have to be as explosive. So they might have learned a thing or two last year, and they might just have to reel everything in this year. So it's going to be an interesting year. Let's see if they do regress at all. It could be a big fall from grace.
It could. The schedule's nice to them. They play Austin Pay, and they're away at Hawaii their first 2 weeks. So that's 2-0 there. Then they get a bye week, a very easy one. But the rest of the out-of-conference games are tough. They have to go to Indiana. They're playing Troy at home, and then they've got to go to Auburn as well as all the conference games. So that's not an easy slate.
No, that's not what you want when you're trying to replace half a team. You've got an offensive coordinator that's inexperienced. He's probably going to be forced to try just replicate whatever they did last year. But now he doesn't have the personnel to do it. So unless he's going to be brave and try to implement his own plan, yeah, those are really hard games. The CUSA in whole this year has been screwed a bit at those conference games. They've really been shafted on some of their schedules.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, it's going to be a tough year for them. But in terms of guys to watch, D'Angelo Malone may be gone, but they're still good at defensive end. The guy you're watching is Juwan Jones. He's a veteran. He is in his 5th year now. D'Angelo Malone sort of overshone him a bit. He's 6'3", he's 275 pounds. Great frame for an edge rusher. Overall, he's got 182 tackles, 30.5 for a loss, 18.5 sacks, 5 passes defended, a few forced fumbles in there as well. He's a bit more of a bruiser than what D'Angelo Malone is, because D'Angelo Malone was very small for his size, and that's what's gonna work against him in the NFL. He doesn't have this issue. So he's a bit more of a bruiser, a bit more physical, can get to the levels of productivity there, so hopefully he can fill that gap. And with that, that is everything. We've been through all 11 CUSA teams. Thank you for all of you who've been with us. It has been a bit of a long one. I think in future when we do these, we'll not do any news with it, because it would have been 2 hours otherwise, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, there's an intriguing mix this year. There are some teams you're looking forward to seeing. UTSA could be really good. Obviously, Western Kentucky may not be, but Alabama, Birmingham, that could potentially be a really good side. This is not a conference to sleep on this year, and there is plenty of good talent to watch in terms of the draft as well, isn't there?
No, it won't be a surprise if neither team last year makes a championship game. That would not surprise me at all. Like if you get 2 totally new sides, it wouldn't surprise me if Western Kentucky went out and won 4 games in a dreadful year. Wouldn't surprise me if UAB went out and went 11-1, or if Rice go 0-12. These are things that just would not surprise me.
No, not at all. I'd be the same. I would like to see UTSA back there. I have a bit of a soft spot for them now, but yeah, the league is open. So with that, that is all about the CUSA. Thank you for bearing with us. If you've been with us, we've had quite a few people in as we've been going along. Just a shout out to Derek Bobarek. I've seen you in the Twitch chat. He has subscribed to us for the 5th month in a row. Thank you so much for that, sir. He said hello as well. Hello to you. Hello to Dan. Thank you for bearing with us there. Yeah, it's been a bit of a long one. We're gonna cut the news out next time and we'll go straight through, but hopefully it's been useful for you. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut down the individual talk about the teams, and we'll put them up as smaller videos so they're a lot easier to ingest as well. But yeah, thank you to yourself, Dan, everyone who's been in Twitch, and to everyone who has been in YouTube. And I just want to give a shout out as well to the Winning Cures Everything podcast, because in doing all this research for the CUSA, they are the font of knowledge that I've been using for a lot of this information. Those guys know what they're on about. So if you want a good podcast to go and listen to bits about the CUSA about, obviously come and listen to us first, because we know what we're talking about as well, but go and give them a check out as well. their videos are really good, really helpful, and I will no doubt use them again for some of these other ones going forward. There anything else you want to mention before we go off air today? I know we've been going a while, so we're probably just going to split, but anything else you want to get off?
Yeah, nope.
Nope.
Covered all that.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Like I say, there's been a few teething things with this today. I will get the screen share working for next time so you can see all this information as well as ingest it, and we will just do the breakdowns next time. We won't do news with it, and that will keep the pod down to a respectable time. So yeah, we'll get there. This is the whole part of learning with it all. But thank you for everyone who has been with us. It just remains for me to go through our socials before we get on out of here. So you can find us all over the internet. You can find us on YouTube, ROTL UK, Twitch, ROTL_UK. On Facebook, you'll find us on our page, Roar of the Lions UK, the group Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide. Twitter and Instagram, you can find us ROTL_UK. And yes, of course, you can find us on the website, roarofthelionsuk.com. We appreciate you all for listening to us. Any feedback on the shows, just let us know about them. I know this one has been a little too long, and we will adjust to that. But anything else, just let us know. But until we see you again, thank you ever so much, and we will see you next Monday, I think, and then we will be back next week with, I think, the Sun Belt will do. So we'll have a little look there. But until next time.